Oh, we are early. Okay. Hi.
Hello, everyone. My name's Talon, and my pronouns are she, her. So, welcome back to the Love Hub Live as part of the Fringe Queer Film and Arts Festival. It's really hard to say
Yeah,
that.
blah, 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 blah.
The Fringe
Blah,
Queer
blah, blah.
Film and Arts Festival. The Love Hub is a queer health traveling circus which started with events in 2019, went online last year due to COVID, and this year we're back in person with in-person events. So we're live from 2 till 5, and we were live yesterday from 2 till 5. So if you want to see see what
Blah, blah,
happened,
blah, 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 blah.
head to facebook.com/prepster.info. And I'd love to welcome my fabulous co-host, Phil.
Hi, I'm Phil Samba. My pronouns are he, him. We've had several events across the whole weekend. We have a lot more to go still. We are here from 2 until 5. Head to queerhealth.info and see the rest of the events that have been on and yada yada yada. Today we are joined by the co-directors of the Love Tank. So I'm gonna welcome Mark and Will.
Hey, hi Phil. Did you just say yada yada yada?
He said yada
I
yada.
said yada yada yada. It's
I'm
been a
jealous.
long weekend already, huh?
Hello, everybody.
Hi, how are you?
Well, this is Mark.
There's
I'm
people
This is Will.
online that are not gonna know. Who's who?
I'm Mark Thompson. This is Will Nutland.
Okay. So how do you think the Love Hub events have gone so far?
Incredibly well. We had a full-on day yesterday. Every session was really, really packed and really busy. So much great feedback, lots of engagement, some fantastic discussions, and yeah, it's been really, really good, right?
Yeah, for me, it's been just like our expectations have just been exceeded right the way through. Yesterday morning, we started with Frou-Frouing the Fanny, which was a genital embroidery workshop, and I was just absolutely blown away. We had folks who rocked up on their own, and by the end of it said that they'd made new friends. We had people sitting alongside tables of other people doing embroidery of genitals that they don't have and that had never had experience of, so they were learning about from each other about different types of genitals, around genital health. I was really taken yesterday at a Jamu's wet play workshop, which was just hilarious and so exploratory, and yet we were able to draw parallels from what we were talking about at wet play with the douching workshop that happened the night before. So I'm really liking the way that like the workshops and events are joining up, and kind of drops of some of them are coming and feeding the next set of workshops. And then I was Mark and I were in here at the Hub venue early this morning, and we're able to welcome a whole load of people in for Black Yogis. And then Phil, I think I saw everyone come out of yours and Dale's workshop. So many thrilled faces, and I know that was quite an experimental workshop that you planned, and it just went so well. And there are actually still people we can see into the cafe and bookshop space now. There are still people hanging out after your workshop and buying books and continuing those conversations. So just thrilled, absolutely thrilled by how it's going.
And can you tell me what is the Love Tank's relationship with the Fringe?
Well, we've been working with the Fringe for about 5 years now.
Yeah,
5 years. And we initially started off by supporting and sponsoring, being a sponsor of the Fringe Film Festival. So making sure that our ads were in the Fringe program, and occasionally supporting the odd film that would be shown, which would connect with the work that we were doing around community development, community building, or health. And from there, it's grown, and we've been really, really proud to work in partnership. And then we started the Love Hub 3 years ago as just an experiment, because there was this great building, the Rose Lippman building, which we were then using. We were invited to come along and curate this weekend of events. And so it's just been continuously ongoing from there. So it's a really great partnership, because what we do in terms of bringing new voices, working across communities, completely fits in line with the ethos of Fringe Film and Arts Festival.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's always attracted us, the Love Tank alongside Fringe, is that Fringe takes the same kind of approach as we do. It's very grassroots. It's very, very DIY. They have a whole stack of volunteers. We have a great stack of volunteers as well who've been helping us to make these events happen across the weekend. People like Grant from Fringe, who has been the main Love Hub person, has just made it happen. So we share the same ethos. We share the same politics, the same outlook. Very queer in what we do, and it's just been absolutely brilliant.
And what do you see for like the future of the Love Tank with the Love Hub and Fringe? Like, what do you see next happening?
Well, we were just talking about this just now. I think whenever we do this, we kind of sit here for a moment. We're like, whose idea was this? So much work, but it is great work, and there's a lot of build up to it and a lot of activity that takes place to bring it here. But when we're here, we're buzzing and it's just really exciting. And then we sat in here this morning and straight away we're going, right, when can we take this on tour? Because I think, first of all, this is really London based, which we accept, and it's, in this particular part of London. But there are so many queer people around the country that we know would really benefit from engaging with activity like this. And as you said at the beginning, Talon, this is, we hope it's kind of a traveling circus of queer events. So I think in the future, if funding's available and, we can do that, we'd like to take it outside of London. But I think there's also opportunity for us to take certain parts of the Fringe, of Love Hub. So tonight we've got a great event which we're doing called Second Tuesday Monologues. We're inviting four queer activists to come along and deliver a monologue around a particular topic. And we want to do those again in the new year. So I think there's opportunity for us to take different parts and continue to do those over a regular basis. I mean, just yesterday, Angelina, Namiba and Charity, who did the Through the Fanny, were like, we want to take this model of embroidery and activity and talking about health to another piece, to another community. So working with positive women who are having children. So I think we've got a really great model which we can expand on and take outside of London, but we know other people can take parts of it and develop it themselves.
Yeah, and I think last year because of COVID, we couldn't do Love Hub in person, so we did all of our events online, and that meant that it was more accessible to people out, all across the UK and wider. We know people join us from all different parts of the world, and that's why this year we've done a bit of a hybrid. So this is why we're doing Love Hub Live, so that we can keep that connection with people who can't get to our physical hub. But for me, the beauty of this year has been able to actually be in a same physical space, and we've all been having to isolate, not get together, not to commune for almost 18 months, and it just feels so fucking great to be in the same space, to be able to the smell and the touch and the taste of being together, being downstairs in the event space. It is such a thrill, and it reminds us of why we come together. It really reminds us. And so if unfortunately we did all have to go back into any lockdown, I think we'd have to deal with it. We would do Love Hub, again online, but I just don't, I want us to be able to be together. And as Mark said this morning, Mark was saying we have to take this on the road. And I reminded Mark that when we're sitting in rainy Birmingham in April, and Mark's just got up, having his morning cigarette and coffee, and he says to me, "Why? Whose idea was this?" So I remind you, it was your idea when we were sitting in Brick Lane that you said we've got to take this on the road. So Phil, you are God's witness that it was Mark who said we have to take this on the road this morning.
We've got it on video, so don't worry.
Yeah, got the evidence. But I would love to think about how we could use the same model of the Love Hub, take some of the events, the workshops, some of those same people, and go to spaces with it, not necessarily just in the UK. And work with local partners, local people, local communities to put some of this great shit together, because it has been absolutely thrilling, and so much learning, and so many tangible things that we can point to that have been the outcome of this, but so many intangible things. We know that people made new friends yesterday at some of the events. We know that new connections have been built. We know that new allyships have been built. AIDS for Activism last night. You know, there was a young woman who rocked up knowing no one and was still, you know, one of the last people to leave the cafe space, having got, you know, her phone full of phone numbers of new people she was connecting with. It was so beautiful to see, and we want to do that. We want to do more of that, and we want to do more of that wherever we can. So if you're tuning in and you're listening and you've loved what you've seen us do at the Love Hub, and you have space and you have contacts, do give us a shout. We would love to partner with you.
Okay.
I think what you said there about communing and coming together is really poignant. I think just reflecting on yesterday, coming here into the space and talking with people and seeing people again, and seeing openly queer people as well, openly queer and trans people, you know, it's really impactful, because when I left going home, I just realized again I was in a space where it's like, you know, cis people everywhere, well, presumably straight people everywhere, and I just kind of missed those connections again. So coming back today has been feeling, it feels amazing. So I just think it's, yeah, I think it's great.
We
Also,
really enjoyed it.
also, I was wondering about, like, we tend to have STI and HIV testing at the when we do the Love Hub, and I just wanted you guys to like talk about that a little bit.
Well, we've partnered, our friends Positive Easter here, because this is the area they worked in, and they've been here all weekend providing free HIV testing and STI testing and screening in the space where people can come, and they're distributing condoms and a whole range of information. And I don't know what the uptake has been for them, but just their physical presence here is a really good thing, because, you know, they do outreach in the community, and it's very often in gay bars, you know, which are usually filled with, you know, cis men. And so to come here to promote the service to a much more diverse audience, a younger audience, a younger crew, is fantastic for them, and it's good for us, you know. And it's once again about putting testing and screening back into the community. So we're really glad that they're here doing that work for us.
Yeah, and I was actually watching around yesterday, and you could see like a couple of people had little sticking plasters on their fingers, and it was like, what's going on? It's like, oh, the people who've been making use of the little STI and HIV testing service. And the other thing that I've really loved about that service is it is accessible for everyone, regardless of the genitals you have or how you identify with your gender or your sexuality. And the other thing we've been really pushing is that there've been quite a few people living with HIV who have been at our sessions, and we have been really clear that this isn't just about HIV testing, it's also about STI testing. We don't want to put off positive people from accessing that service. If you've already been diagnosed with HIV, you can still rock up and come along and make use of either the urine-based gonorrhea and chlamydia screening services, or the swabs that you do them in the bathroom and private on your own here, and send them off, and then you'll get your results back really quickly. So Phil, I think it's a really important component of what we've been doing here, and also because there's usually 15 to 30 minutes between each of the sessions we do, people who are hanging around can use the opportunity to nip downstairs and make the best of that testing service. So if you are coming along to one of our events for the rest of today, head out and look at the folks in a Positive East t-shirt, and they will be able to help you out. And we have loads of condoms and lube as well.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for joining us. We are going to let you go because Dale is going to interview Dan and Glenroy. So,
Thank you. It's been
Thanks,
great to
guys.
see you.
Good to talk to you.
see you.
Bye.
Okay, so we should like tidy this all up. So there are still events across the weekend or across today. Today's the end of the weekend. But like go online, go on the Fringe website, see what's coming up, see what you can make. I think there's a massive closing party at the end as well.
That's true.
Yes.
Amazing.
So, yeah. So do that. So we are going to leave, and we're gonna bring in Dale, and then Dale's going to speak to Dan and Glenroy. But Dale is like he is the project coordinator for our Black Health Matters project, and basically the project is looking at different ways in which we can essentially like prevent the health inequalities that we have amongst Black people. So yeah, so Dale, are you ready? Okay, well, we're out. We'll see you in a bit.
I'm ready. I'm going. Yeah. Hi everyone. So my name is Dale Tegent. I am the project coordinator for the Black Health Matters project. As Phil said, the project is around addressing health inequalities that impact Black communities in the UK by working with people who have lived experience of those conditions. Today I'll be hosting the QMM in the City Live event as part of the Love Hub Live Fringe Queer and Arts Festival. This panel discussion is a collaboration between Queer Migrant Men, QMM, and the Black Health Matters project, which I run, in which we'll be exploring the experience of queer Black African and Caribbean migrants accessing sexual health services in London. The QMM project aims to help queer men living in London to get informed about their rights when it comes to health, especially sexual health. And the Black Health Matters project, as I said, is around working with people who have lived experience, Black people who have lived experience of health conditions to help them address those health inequalities. So supporting me today, I have Pedro Lino in the background, who's a project coordinator of QMM, and he's doing the behind the scenes. We encourage you to ask questions throughout today's session, as well as put in comments in the chat. For the discussion, I'm joined by my two guests, Dan Yomi and Glenroy Murray. Dan is the founder of Living Free UK, an organization that supports LGBTQ+ Africans, people seeking asylum, and refugees. Glenroy is executive director of JFLAG, a human rights and social justice organization which advocates for the rights, livelihood, and well-being of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people in Jamaica. Welcome. Oh, just waiting for them to be added to the.
Hi.
Hi, Glenn. Long time.
Long time.
Hi, Dan.
Hey, hi everyone.
How are you doing?
Hello.
How are you guys?
Good to be here. Yeah, good. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you, Glenn?
I'm good. I'm good. I have some
You're
work.
looking swell on a good Sunday.
You know, I try.
I know everyone's probably wanting to be at church or relaxing to this evening.
I don't know about church, but
Relaxation, yeah.
So yeah, welcome. Thank you guys for joining me. Oh, I forgot to provide an audio description of myself. So as I said, I'm Dale. I'm a Black queer man, and I have locks. Could you guys quickly introduce yourselves and provide an audio description, please? Who would like to go first?
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm Daniel. I am the founder of Living Free UK, and also the founder of Collab Zone on Clubhouse. So both initiatives now centered around creating a safe space for LGBT Africans, both on the continent and here in the diaspora. I also work with asylum seekers and refugees. Glad to be here.
Thank you. And you, Glenroy?
hi, I'm Glenroy Murray. As you said, I'm the executive director of JFLAG, which is the leading LGBT rights organization here in Jamaica. One of their youngest executive directors, actually.
Oh, you.
Yeah, I'm just 28. Lived in the UK for a year while I was studying abroad, and that's how I met Dale. And I was watching WandaVision before I came on.
So now we're going to get into today's discussion. I'm going to start with you, Dan. So tell us a bit about what motivated you to move to the UK.
Right. No, so I finished my first degree in Nigeria, 2013. Did a bit of NYSC, something you have to do, and then came to the UK to study my master's at Bournemouth University. UK, because obviously in Nigeria, you hear about the global recognition, blah, blah, blah. I chose Bournemouth because I needed a work experience alongside my course. So I did like a 2-year program. That was the main motivation. Certainly not the weather or the food. So,
ain't that the truth?
yes.
And you, Glenway, I know you're no longer living in the UK, but what motivated you to come to UK?
Well, so I came because it was like the natural progression for me at the time. I my background is in law, even though I'm not a lawyer. I'm finally going to be one. But I wanted to do postgraduate studies, and I thought where would be ideal for me that I wouldn't have to pay for because I'm poor. So I applied for a scholarship through the FCO, the Shevening Scholarship, and I was, fortunate enough to get it. And so I wanted to kind of extend my own focus on law to see how different people's marginalization and vulnerabilities impact their interactions with the law. So that's what I did my postgraduate studies in a nutshell. So that's how I ended up in the UK. I had been there before for work, so it wasn't too much of a transition.
Nice. So when you both migrated here, what was it like building your social circles? Coming to a completely new country, what was that experience like? Getting to know people?
Sorry. For me, there was that excitement, right? Living in Nigeria, I remember my plane landing Heathrow. And I think growing up in Nigeria, of course, you've been conditioned to see the abroad as this paradise. So there's that anticipation, but I think reality really sets in once you get here. At first you didn't realize you're Black. Most people don't look like you. This is different. And then cultural shock. From the accents to the food to the weather, and I think having to navigate that space in general can be very challenging for a lot of international students. So whilst I left physically from Nigeria, I was still very much in tune back home in terms of friends, calling them, and just trying to have that support system virtually. And starting to connect with the Nigerian community. But then when you throw the spin of sexuality into the mix, maybe a Nigerian community, but then you're queer. So like, where do you go to? Or you go to white spaces and then you're to Black, or even accessing the Black British spaces, again, for me also was a challenge because although we had this shared experience of racism, I think culturally there was a gap there. In terms of not understanding the jokes or having to speak in a certain way to be understood. So I think the support system I created whilst I was here, for my friends back home, and the need to start creating my own space, where I could be myself, where I could be Nigerian, migrant, and queer was very important for me.
Thank you. And what about you, Glenn? What was it like building your social circles in this country?
I mean, I think it was interesting because I think I was a bit lucky in the context in which I came into the UK because of that particular scholarship, I wasn't the only one that got it. So it was a group of us that came. And so in many ways, I brought Jamaica with me. And it wasn't just me that was doing the kind of courses that I was doing or the kinds of studies that I was doing. And I wasn't the only queer person in the group. And I had known some of them already. We hung out already. So that was an opportunity for me to build friendships with people that I was, mostly, high and by with while I was living in Jamaica. So it wasn't too jarring. I had family in the UK as well that I had spent time with when I had come to visit previously. So there was that connection as well. But what I will say is, having left Jamaica in a space as an openly queer person in Jamaica, where I accessed, Jamaican queer spaces, the biggest challenge for me was finding a version of that, because I learned very early on, I think probably within my first or second week, that Soho really wasn't my district. I remember, I have a very vivid memory. I watched, it was one of their nights. I don't remember what it's called, but when the people strip for them to see who wins the prizes. I think it was a Thursday night. And I remember there was this there was this black girl. She was doing amazing. I thought she deserved to win. And that is not what happened. And in that moment, I realized, yes, white people will come together. I think from that moment on, I think I was very intentional about making sure that I found black spaces that create that opportunity for me to be me in the way that I was in Jamaica, and I wanted that experience. So I sought it out. I fortunately met Mark before I had come to the UK, a few months before, and so I already had that connection, and I kind of leaned into that to kind of to build my connections. And I was fortunate to meet you and Isaac and the rest of you guys, so that I could have those kinds of friendships. And it really made my experience what it was, because I didn't feel as isolated as some others might have had.
Yeah. And that actually brings me to my next question. How was it specifically interacting with Black queer communities in this country? How did you build those connections? How was that challenging for you? Was it good to exist in those spaces? I'll start with you, Glenn.
I needed those spaces because I feel like for me, because I started from the place of, and I always say this, I think how you, as a queer person, how you leave Jamaica is kind of how you navigate that space wherever you go when you're migrating. That mindset that you leave with is the same thing. I was in I'm a privileged queer person to the extent that I have access to those spaces. I can be me in the fullest sense. And so coming to a space, kind of establishing roots, I knew I needed that to feel my full self. I always say that in order to be a queer person, I need dancehall, because dancehall is how I established my queerness in a space. Right? If I'm not bubbly, and I go right. And so I definitely sought it out. I definitely leaned into friendships. And the minute that I was finally, when the Love Tank had started having their regular meetings, I jumped at the opportunity because I wanted more of it, and I wanted to connect with people who were in the diaspora and understand what things were like for them. And it was very interesting for me, to say the least, to hear where things were in the Jamaican diaspora. My own experience of Jamaica.
Yeah, I think meeting you, it was Blackout. One of those Blackout sessions actually was actually really nice to connect with because my background is have Jamaican heritage as well, but I was born in the UK. It was really nice to connect with someone that's actually from Jamaica and learn about what it's like to be a queer person living in Jamaica compared to in the UK. So I think it was, not only was it really great for you to come to the UK and develop that queer community, but it was, for me, it was also a really interesting and cool way to connect with the Jamaican community over there. And like since then, meeting you and the others that you came to study with, I now have friends that live in Jamaica, and I can actually go and visit and experience the queer world in Jamaica when I want to go. So it was really cool meeting you.
Yes, and I'm still waiting for you to get here.
Don't worry, I'm coming soon. Next year, don't worry, I'm making plans.
Okay.
And Dan, what was it like for you interacting with Black queer communities? What was it? Was it challenging? Was it really good for you? What was that like?
I think a mixture of many things. I would say my experience was sort of intersectional. I remember, again, I'd never been to a gay club whilst I was in Nigeria my whole life there. Like, it just doesn't come to mind. And then coming to the UK in Bournemouth, going to the first gay club, and then seeing like guys holding hands and kissing, they're not running from the police. That was wild to me. Like, that was like new, but it also validated this side of me, that I've been shutting down for years. But then obviously racism kicks in that space, and you realize you can't really be your true self. And then going to Black Pride, oh my God, was Jesus, these people look like me. I want to be here. But then I remember, meeting Black people here with Yoruba sounding names, right? So I'm from Yoruba, and automatically thinking, oh, this person has a Yoruba sounding name. They must understand Yoruba. They must know how to cook jollof rice. They must know all those things, right? And then forget the cultural gap. And then when you speak to them, and then they're replying with in, I'm like, oh, this is all new. I need to learn. So I think having to navigate all of that space In terms of the validation it gave me, people who look like you, visibility, that was empowering. Give the Black example. But also I needed to do more to, again, find that space where I could be myself unedited as an African, right? But again, I think over the years, I've had to learn the culture, so now when I go to Black Brit spaces, the humor kicks in, I can laugh at the jokes, I can, I think these are things that really don't come easily when you're just new, like in this country. But all in all, like I said, I think the mutual exchange of learning, whether someone who was born and raised here, because these lived experiences are different. But like what you're doing now, right? Speaking to people with the lived experience, it's so powerful because we can learn from each other. We understand the privilege and struggles we both bring to the table and how we can then, exist and and live.
Thank you. And so I suppose what you're kind of alluding to is that a lot of what you mentioned earlier about that culture shock that you experience actually coming to this country and having to I suppose navigate that and learn how to, I suppose, understand how to interact with people in this country and that sort of thing, and the kind of ways we talk about things or talk about our home countries, all that sort of stuff. We have a question here. Could you guys share the name of some of the space in which you met other Black queer folks? Thank you for that comment, Adrian.
I think lessons in the life, because I stay in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
People don't always have. So that was a series that was being held by Blackout UK. That's where I met other Black queer folks. I mean, I had a ritual of going to Bootylicious, their club, every last Saturday, because that was the only place that played close enough to authentic dancehall, even though the girls didn't always know how to move to the song, right? It was the only place that did that. So those were like the two spaces for me that I felt like I had to be in. Outside of my friends that came with me, and so I would go to Chris's house and we'd eat, and Chris is an amazing cook. So like Christmas dinner was a proper Jamaican Christmas dinner. You have 4 or 5 meats for it to be a good Christmas dinner. So I had that, but definitely those two spaces were central. I mean, and I also will say, to your point, Daniel, that I think Black Pride was amazing because I was able not only to go there as a Black queer person, but go there with my friends, some of whom were not queer, but also they could have enjoyed the space.
Yeah.
And the dancehall music was playing, and we did a fling with shoulder and everything.
I remember that. Yeah, that was so fun. It was so fun.
And also, big up Notting Hill Carnival, I still remember getting drunk.
Really good. Go on, Dan.
No, I agree. So of course, UK Black Pride, Blackout UK, meeting people like Phil, Black Spaces. How did I first meet Phil? Must be on Twitter or hearing, who doesn't know Phil? But yeah, I think those spaces, House of Rainbow, I think they were very, very helpful in terms of just, helping me just reconcile this Blackness and queerness. But of course, now I think having been here long enough, I feel most comfortable than I've ever been in this country, because I've had to then now create my own space of Blackness, nationality, accent. I can be who I want to be, and I think that's where spaces like Living for UK or the Cool Love Zone, come to play. And it really does attract people who 7 years ago didn't have that space where they could just be all of that. Black Pride definitely, and Blackout UK would really stand out for me when I first came.
Thank you. So now I want to get into what it was like actually accessing the healthcare service, and specifically sexual health service in this country. One, was it different to how you would access it in your home countries? And what was it like, I suppose, learning about those services in this country and just using them?
Well, so once again, I'm God's favorite, or one of. So I already knew about what the systems were, because as I said, I've been here before, and working in LGBT advocacy, you know other advocates, and their the ins and outs. So I already knew about, for example, Dean Street. I already knew about Sexual Health London, and so I did my check. So I did self-testing, which was the most liberating and amazing thing ever for me, at least. I'm still having. I came back to Jamaica with this struggle that we have to go through like 20 questions, 10 to 20 questions when you're going for a regular, for example, testing. Just say, you have to tell them how many people you done slept with in the last. And I'm like, girl, I don't remember.
I'm right.
I don't know their names. I don't know where they're from. Right. So I go through all of this. And I think being in a space where I was in charge of my own sexual health and keeping track of it and seeking treatment if I needed to was very empowering for me. And I remember one of the first things I did when I came back, I said, so where are we with self-testing? I mean, we finally started it here now in Jamaica. I think the benefit of the UK is that it has a really good postal system. And I still think we're figuring out what that looks like. But yeah, but I was lucky to know about all of that before I came. And so it was just very easy for me to access sexual health on my own terms.
So, and what about, I suppose, some of your peers? Was it the same for them when they knew about those services already, or was it a difficulty or struggle for them, or did you have to educate them on those sort of things?
Well, I mean, for the ones that asked, I would have told them, right? So for my peers, I would have told them. But I do know that one of my friends, he did go through like the formal channels, because also with Chevening gives you insurance and stuff like that. It's a part of the scholarship, so it's easy for you than I guess somebody who comes over in other circumstances to just go and access, because you're covered. So there was that as well, and you have to kind of register with general practitioners. So we'd have to go and find a general practitioner or something like that. So it was relatively easy for him as well. But I also told him, and when I was leaving and someone new was coming, I gave them the full rundown. This is how you do it, this is where you go, all of that. And I also had people here that I could connect people to kind of inform them as well. So I definitely shared that knowledge so that people knew what to do.
Thank you. And what about you, Dan? What was it like accessing healthcare services in this country, and specifically sexual health services?
Accessing, I wouldn't say I had a major problem. I think for me it would be more of the stigma around sexual health inherently and the services. And it's back in Nigeria, like when we saw sexual campaigns, as a queer person, I didn't think that applied to me. Remember the first time going to like the GPA, like sexual health clinic, and they were asking, do you sleep with men and women? Like the first time I was like, that was so new, because you couldn't in Nigeria, like you say men and it becomes a bigger issue. I like how they so it's really, really bad. Obviously things are changing because the world is becoming more global. So I think it was more around stigma. I think what helped me would be the visibility around that, so people who, like Black people, who would go for testing and then they're posting on the socials. Again, not me calling Phil like 1 million times. I think he does that so well. But just, I've just been to and the first time I saw it, I'm like, oh wow, so this is actually a thing. And that gave me this confidence, because especially if you're in the closet, you really, really struggle to want to be seen in those spaces. What if your auntie sees you, your uncle from back home, and they start asking, what are you doing there? And so I don't know, it would be the stigma around sexual health and the representation around that really helped me, and that's what I'm trying to do now. To even talk about it. You love having sex, so why not prioritize sexual health or having those conversations, because they are really a taboo topic. And I think to some extent, even in London, amongst the Black community, having to access sexual health. And thanks to the work of the work that you guys like Prep Star, to just deep. And I think once we destigmatize sex health in general, it then allows people to feel confident and feel comfortable to say, actually, I can access these spaces, because by default, you just don't want to go there.
Thank you. And now I actually want to talk a bit more about your organization. So as you said, when you introduced yourself, that you're the founder of Living Free UK, and your organization works directly with queer African migrants. So what, in your experience, what are the, I suppose, the challenges of those communities when they come to the UK?
It would be finding a space, a safe space to even talk about these issues, right? Because a lot of queer migrants that come here come as individuals still in the closet. So although we have left Nigeria, where we're now in the UK, the laws are not as bad as Nigeria, but we still have our relatives on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram. So we're still not out. So I think finding a space where we can connect with people like us, Black people, Africans, people of like minds, has been helpful. I think obviously with the Asylum Corner that we do every month, or even Clubhouse now, the Cool Off Zone, which is one of our global social hubs. We now have almost 2,000 members. These are queer Africans from across the world, mostly on the continent. And that was something that was a space I didn't have like when I was young. So to be connecting with loads of Ghanaians, Nigerians, and have these conversations. We've recently started this series very soon, actually, where we're bringing a section of experts based in Nigeria, to take questions, from queer Nigerians on the ground around the sector, because we get these emails and people don't know what to do about it. To answer your question, I'm rambling. It's finding the space. Once you find a space where you can be yourself, it makes you feel empowered. And that has been a great way to be about it.
Thank you. And Glenn, so do you see there any similarities for Caribbean migrants or Jamaican migrants queer migrants coming to the UK?
So for me, I have this theory. I've yet to prove it, but I still think it's true. I think that actually, I think diaspora spaces are actually more homophobic than Jamaica itself. This is why. So in Jamaica, what a lot of people don't see is almost like there's been this explosion of queer visibility in the last 6-7 years. We're just everywhere, right? I remember once going into a soca party, and soca in Jamaica is a big space for queer people's presence. I remember going to the soca party, and the first thing I saw was 2 members of the community, them dip on them head top. If I say this in English, it not gonna have the same effect. Head top, and just carry on. I said, okay, this is where we are. I'll be right back. Went to my friends and then came back to to carry, to boost up the girls. But that happens, and I remember also when I came back, I went to this party in 2019, and there was a DJ it was a mainstream party actually, and it was a dancehall party. One of the more upscale ones, I'll say that. But the select at the time was being unnecessarily exceedingly homophobic, because you go to that space, it's a strictly 2K party, it's just the 2000s, so you expect like a homophobia to play. But he was doing a lot, and he was essentially booed off the stage by the audience, and I was just shocked that was happening in Jamaica. That wow, we've actually reached this point where people are saying we've had our fill of the homophobia. Like you play the one song, or you play a couple songs, and you move it. And I think Jamaica is going through that process locally, but with diaspora communities, you leave Jamaica with this idea of the Jamaica that you left, whenever you left it. And you are brought into this metropolitan space, this totalizing space of the UK or any other diaspora community, particularly in majority white countries, and you're being told to assimilate, and you're being told things about your culture. And I think the almost knee-jerk response for Black people especially is to double down on their culture. So there's a doubling down of the homophobia that happens in these spaces, because they're fighting for their cultural identity as they understand it. And so there's like a double homophobia here. I remember the last time, or probably not the last time, but I remember one time I was in the US, went to this little Jamaican club in North Carolina, in Charlotte, And me and my godmother was spending some time with her. I was like, okay, we're going to this Jamaican club. And me hear the boom bye bye. And I say, I have not heard this in Jamaica in years.
Mm-hmm.
No matter which space I went to, I had not heard it in years.
Mm-hmm.
And it struck me then for the first time that there's a difference there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think queer people coming from Jamaica who unlike me, who was kind of went there with a clear idea that I'm going back to my country, that I'm really just here for a year, I'm going to enjoy what's here, who plan to like establish roots in these countries, have to navigate that difficulty. They love their culture and identity, and it's where they feel at home. But then they have to kind of hide themselves because they're facing a level of homophobia that's either akin to or more than what they were experiencing.
So I suppose it's like a concentrated version of their cultural.
Right.
Yeah. And I remember when I met you and we had these conversations about it, and I reflected on it in my own family and stuff, where my mum was born in this country. And I think about her level of homophobia compared to some of her friends who were born in Jamaica and came here. It's way more heightened than they are when they come here. So like when I think now in terms of my family and my acceptance in my family, the ones who are accepted are the ones that have actually come from Jamaica, as opposed to the ones that were born in the UK. So I think there is definitely some merit to what you're saying there.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, and I think it's and I also, interestingly enough, and I'll stop here, but I think I've noticed more now when I see certain things posted on the different social media pages like Pink Wall or stuff like that. I ask myself, and I see like very homophobic comments. I start to question whether or not are these Jamaicans living in Jamaica or are these Jamaicans living abroad, and that's not just to ignore that there's still homophobia is alive and well in Jamaica. It very much is. Based on the last research that we did, the majority of persons still express disdain for homosexuality, but how they talk about it is different. I think now what I'll find when I scroll through Pink Wall or Gleaner comments is that I'll find the ordinary Jamaican make a quick joke or they'll drop an emoji. I think the most homophobic comments is always about somebody saying, oh, Jamaica is not what it once was, what is happening to my country? And I think that means that there's something there that needs to be addressed. And I think the only people that can actually address it are the Jamaicans themselves, either the ones that come over or the ones that are still there. They're the only ones that can say, I mean, it ain't really that deep anymore. But I don't think that conversation is happening.
Thank you. Yeah, so Glenn, I was now going to ask you a bit about JFLAG actually. So we know that, as you've said, JFLAG is actually working hard to improve the human rights of LGBTQ people in Jamaica. Is there anything that we in the UK, in terms of supporting queer people and improving human rights here, that we can learn from Jamaica and your experience working with JFLAG?
Oh, I mean, the contexts are exceedingly different, I think. But I think, we take a certain approach to it. So, for example, we celebrate Pride not in June. We celebrate it in August, and we're very intentional about that because August in Jamaica is the first week of August. August 1 is Emancipation Day, and August 6 is Independence Day.
Yeah.
So one, you have 2 holidays to host events, so practically that's a good time. But also, it's a heightened sense of Jamaican identity there, and our mantra is Jamaicanness and queerness are not opposed to each other. And I think we operate from that space always, that I'm both Jamaican and queer at the same time. My queerness is very much Jamaican. And I think for that very issue that I just described, I think the only way to tackle that is to have Jamaican queer persons having the conversation in that way. Is to kind of figuring out what's actually happening in Jamaica. Where is Jamaica now? What are they saying now about queerness in Jamaica? And then having the conversation at that level, so that when Jamaicans do move abroad, particularly queer Jamaicans trying to seek a better life, whether because of the homophobia they've experienced or anything else, that they don't jump out of the frying pan and into the fire, kind of almost, I think that would be very useful. to kind of stay in touch as best as you can and pay attention to the small but important ways that the needle is shifting. So, for example, I remember earlier this year we were able to, for the first time, have one of our advertorials put in the Jamaica Gleaner full-page spread, where we acknowledge the top 10 things that happened between 2010 and 2020. So the top 10 moments of the decade for the LGBT community. And, we had to push a little, we had a little back and forth, some legal issues just to make sure, but we actually got that done, and we got a little comic that we produced, put out there. So things are happening. I remember also this year, I learned a lot. We were doing a media sensitization series, and I learned that the Press Association of Jamaica actually has guidelines for media practitioners on how do you talk about sexual orientation and gender identity already, or even, we'd have developed a media guide before and we revamped it, but they had already done that on their own volition. So things are happening and things are getting better, and it's for people in the diaspora to try to find that out. And I would say, unfortunately, the people who have a vested interest in that is the queer people in the diaspora, to find it out and then have the conversation on that basis, so that they're not being told, oh, but this is just my culture.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really important thing. So I think what you allude to there, Glenn, and what you've been talking about, Daniel, is some of the, I suppose, the cultural barriers that we experience as queer people, whether it's Jamaica or in Nigeria, whether we're at home or abroad, wherever it may be. So I'll start with you, Daniel. What are some of the solutions to actually breaking down some of those cultural barriers?
Talking about it, Jamaica is clearly way ahead. I was just listening to Glenn, Pride. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I want Lagos to be like that someday. Because I interact with queer folks on the continent on a daily basis, and hosting these events, we still have to be hush hush about it, be secretive. So definitely some good stuff to learn there. I think having that conversation, like the Sorosoke, NSAS motto and all of that, and I think we're seeing a generation of queer Nigerians now. The Matthew Blaze, the Amara, the lesbian, campaigners and activists in Nigeria living openly. So that gives me hope. Actually feel inspired, because in my head I'm like, if these people can be doing this stuff in Nigeria where they could potentially go to jail for 14 years, it just gives me this kick. Also creating that space here in the diaspora for queer Nigerians to feel like they can navigate and live freely, really. And I think now having the cool-off zone, I think again that social hub it's become this hub where we can all then come together, whether you're in Nigeria, you're in the States, you're in Ukraine, talk about issues collectively, mental health, issues that we can't even talk to our parents about. So I think having that conversation and educating allies if we feel they need to for free, but mostly just finding that space where we can exist unedited.
Thank you. And you, Glenn, what do you think are some of the potential solutions to breaking down those barriers, those cultural barriers?
I think so. You definitely so what I said before, but also I feel like speaking at shared cultural points. So in other words, I would say, this may be controversial for white queer people, but I don't think it's controversial for us. We knew we were Black, and we knew we were Jamaican or Nigerian before we knew we were queer. You have these years of experience. Tap into that. Tap into those shared similarities, shared vulnerabilities, shared difficulties, and use local language to talk about it. I remember once talking to an activist from Tonga, and she says, LGBT and transgender is not language that we use there. There's Leti and Fakaleti. And they use that language because they have a history of recognizing third gender in the form of Leti and Leti people. So they're the Leti the Tonga Leyte Association, because it kind of leans into that, and they're having conversation with policymakers there on that basis. I think lean into your culture, lean into your history as best as you can, and show that shared cultural identity that make people, because I think particularly because of colonialism and imperialism, especially within the British context, we as Black people, we're distrustful of outsiders, and we're distrustful of things packaged by and framed in terms that don't sound like us and don't look like us. And so we as queer people have to be very careful about how we talk about queerness in ways that are not relatable to the communities that we live in. And so we have to do that translation. Once again, it's unfair, but we have to do that work of turning, LGBT lingo, LGBT dialect, LGBT conversation into things that people understand. So, for example, I remember once we were doing a training of healthcare workers. I mean, how crude can I be? Okay, fine. We're doing a training of healthcare workers. And what we do in these trainings is that we have a panel of LGBT people near the end, as the last thing for people to just ask them all sorts of crazy questions. But it's a part of myth busting, right?
Yeah.
And a woman was trying to articulate her difficulty with bisexual men, and my boss at the time just said, just say, why your pussy shit up, with the notion that women have about what will happen to them sexually if they engage bisexual men, right? And you have to kind of talk to people at that level in their language and
meet them where they're at.
Exactly. And a part of that and meeting them where they're at in our cultural context means using what our people relate to, and it's not LGBTQIA 2S plus. It's none of that. You need to know it, you need to understand it for your own benefit, but then turn it into something that's meaningful within your cultural context.
Thank you. As we're drawing to wrap up, I just want to have one more question for you both. So what tips would you guys give to queer men from Nigeria or Jamaica who are planning to actually move to the UK or have recently moved?
I mean, have a plan. If you're there already, it's kind of, the horse has already gone up the gate, but find out where your community meets so you can have that conversation. And if you have not left, have a plan about and be realistic about what things would be like. I remember they asked me this in my scholarship conversation: how are you going to deal with racism in the UK? And I did give a smart answer because you want the scholarship about I've lived in Jamaica with homophobia all my life, so but it's not really the same. And I think it's kind of being very hip to that. The grass is different. I don't know if it's greener. It might it smells nice sometimes, but it's not necessarily always green. And I think you have to kind of do that migration with that full realization that you're going to have to be working in different ways and addressing issues differently, but you'll still have issues to address. And so don't come with your rose-tinted glasses expecting perfection. Connect with people that can help you along that journey. So that would be my advice. Find your people as quickly as you can.
Yeah. And you, Dan?
Everything Glenn said. If you're quite Nigerian, whether you're in Nigeria or anywhere, join the Cool Off Zone on Clubhouse, and of course, the Living for UK. But yeah, literally, I wouldn't put it in.
I'm surprised none of you said anything about the weather. What was that like for you both when you first came in? What was the weather like for you?
Because I knew what was up. So the first thing I did was buy a bunch of clothes.
Well, I didn't. I remember calling my dad saying I want to leave. And he said, "Are you mad? How would I pay that much money and you want to go back?" People stay there, they don't have two heads. So I'm still not used to it.
Thank you both. So
Pay
again,
attention to the weather app on your phone.
yes,
Always.
exactly. Exactly. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. Dan and Glenn, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for your time, especially on this Sunday when I want to be resting and you both want to be resting too. Whether you're at church or cooking your Sunday dinner, thank you so much. Just some information, for queer migrants planning to move to the UK, sexual health clinics are free and confidential in the UK and in London. They offer free STI and HIV testing, PEP and PrEP, condoms, lube, HPV and hepatitis B vaccination and treatment for STI and HIV. They are also open to everyone. You don't need to give your real name. You don't need to have secure migration status. You don't need to be registered with the NHS. Plus, they won't give your information to the Home Office. If you'd like to find out more about the Queer Migrant Men Project, please visit www.queerhealth.info/projects/queer migrant men, where my colleague Pedro will be can work with you and support you. Thanks again for joining us today. That's all we have time for Queer Migrant Men in the City event. Thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you, Dale. Take care.
Take care. And Glenn, I'm definitely going to come to Jamaica soon. I promise. I promise. I'm trying my best. It's hard. Money's not easy to get.
I know.
And Dan, thank you. Hopefully we'll meet sometime soon. Thank you, guys.
Okay, no worries. Bye.
Bye.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming back. And if you're just joining us, you just watched Dale, Glenroy, and Daniel talk about Black Health Matters, a project designed to address health inequalities faced by Black communities. So what we've got coming up now is a kind of masterclass. Well, we're talking about the masterclass that just happened with Alison Spanky, and Phil is here as well, but he's in the other room. So they're going to join in just a moment. Are you guys ready to join us? Yeah? Okay, great. We're going to bring them into the room now. Hello. It's very strange to be in a different room to Phil. We're usually sat side by side, so this feels very hard.
We've been like side by side like all weekend, so it's the first time. I mean, I know you're just there, but it still feels like
just a wall separating you now.
Yeah, it feels. Yeah.
But you're looking at each other through a screen, so like it's like you could literally be on other sides of London.
It's unnatural for us.
Hello, Alison. How are you?
Hello. How are you?
I'm amazing. How are you doing?
Yes, really well, thank you. Very excited. Just had a really good class. The spanking workshop, but yeah, it was really fun.
Do you want to tell us about that?
So it's a spanking workshop. So introduction to spanking, different techniques, different implements to use, going through the implements, like how to set up scenes in spanking. And basically like a lot of the questions are around, how to make the scene fun and last, more than just like 10 minutes or something, and also like different ways to view the scene. Like some of the questions were around, is spanking like a form of foreplay, which it's not. It's like, it's a play on itself. And so, breaking it down and looking at the different elements and how to do them safely and just, sharing ideas and different ways to do it to just kind of like, spark imagination, or, spark curiosity and imagination in the crowd and create kind of like all the bits of spanking are like ingredients to a recipe. And so basically through the class, we just went through different things and basically built up our recipe cabinet. And so when you do find somebody to spank, you can just go to this cupboard and find these ingredients, like make amazing recipes. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
How did you get into like the world of spanking?
How did I get into the world of spanking?
Like what was the starting point?
I guess I kind of discovered, like when I moved to, I think I had a lot of interest in it before I moved to London, but had no outlet to kind of like discover and play.
Mhm.
And then when I moved to London, I discovered the fetish scene, and I guess ever since then, I've just been like reading and going to parties and chatting with people, and I was working in the industry, and I was asked to do classes, and I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do a class on?
Mhm.
And they wanted a spanking class, and I was like, oh my god, amazing! So basically, researched and studied and played and kind of fell in love with it, and so yeah, haven't looked back.
Okay, and when was that?
That was in 2010.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's been a while.
When I started that. So yeah,
Sweet. So,
I came to London in 2004 from the States. I'm originally
I
from
see.
Wyoming.
Ooh, okay.
Mhm.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I have been asked by my manager
Mhm.
for us to do a demonstration for viewers at home.
Yes.
So let's get into that.
Okay, so if you would, first of all, I want to
I'm
make.
thinking like it's gonna be judged if I stand up, my bum might be over the camera.
Okay.
So let's test that one out.
So it needs to be just.
You've got this, Phil.
See, look.
So if you
I'm
actually
here.
do this
Okay.
and put your butt like that.
Okay, right.
Okay.
Perfectly in frame.
Perfect, yeah. So loosen this leg. So yeah, there we go. You can even like put your leg on the chair if you want. Yeah, and make sure this one's just straight down because that chair rolls. So you don't want to be in a rolling chair and then leaning on something. So is that right that I thank you? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Consent is key. So
Ooh. Ooh.
So I'm just pressing on it afterwards because when I'm spanking that hard with this wooden paddle, it's going to be very, very, very stingy. This is something that's like a little bit softer. Whipping motion. And back to the...
Ooh.
And it will be even more stingy if I hit in the same place each time. How is that?
That's interesting. There's variations. Are people watching outside?
Yeah, not too many, but yes.
So hopefully you can hear me, but like, how did you learn these techniques? Like, what?
I just learned a lot. Just now.
Like the top of the iceberg. You'll have to come to another class to have,
Like the full breadth.
yeah.
I feel like even though I was very brief, I learned a lot because I feel like a lot of the time with spanking, people go to straight, it needs to be hard, it needs to be fast, it needs to be this.
Also,
There's
yeah.
different variations which kind of then have different effects. It's
Whenever
really interesting.
sometimes if I find new people, their idea of like the perfect spank is like the hardest, most intense spank right away, which sometimes often can be like highly unpleasant, especially if you're not expecting it to be so hard. And also it's like you don't want to hurt your toy, and if you hurt your bottom that you're spanking, then you can't spank anybody anymore, and there's no fun for both of you. So
That's true.
you want to like discuss each other's needs beforehand, talk about safety, safe words, and discuss the implements you're going to be using. And you don't have to tell your partner exactly what you're doing because there's an element of surprise and
There was that.
build up and stuff that that you want to. It's like a journey that you're taking your partner on. So can't give it all away, but also they do know what's going to happen, just not in the order.
Talon, do you have a question? Because I do.
Yeah, I do. So I heard about the tea that was involved. So
Aphrodisiac.
So where did you get that?
So good, isn't it?
So
Yeah.
good. Okay.
So aphrodisiacs, my friend Robin Priestley has done the art for it, and they're absolutely gorgeous. It's a tea that I created with another friend, Rare Tea Lady. of Rare Tea Co. And we made this tea because I wanted to have tea is like really sexy anyway, and it's very calming and warming, and it has like a slow release energy. So it also, instead of having like coffee or drugs, which are not really ideal to have when you're spanking because you need to be quite present and aware, both sides as well. It's not really good for a bottom either to be on lots of drugs, because then your senses are impaired and you can't really be as expressive on if something's okay, and it just leads to issues happening, which nobody wants. So so the tea, it gives you energy, and it also you can get, by drinking it, you can get into a tea high, which is also one of the benefits of spanking. Like, people do it because it builds up your endorphins and you go to like a subspace, and it also creates like a natural high. And so like these two highs kind of like mingling together is fun to play around with as well. And the tea is like really beautiful. It smells amazing. It tastes awesome. And it's just like super sexy. So it kind of just like tickles your imagination to like, explore all the different kinds of play and just like make you feel really nice.
So you said you made the tea.
It's made by Rare Tea Company. And like I said, my friend Robin has done the illustrations for it. So
well, what's in
it? Tea.
Well, just like a black tea, or is it like
there's a black tea. There's two black teas, and then there is a rose black tea, and then a silver chip jasmine.
Ooh.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So they're called
really good.
Sweetly Smoked and Rousing Roses.
Okay, and then my next question is, where do people purchase paddles?
So paddles and stuff. Fleet Ilya is an amazing place. He has beautiful other paddles. Paulsville also. Wooden paddles are a little bit more tricky. There is London Alternative Market, and there is Boutique Bazaar, which is like a market that happens on a Sunday, and there's fetish clothes and different like kit that is sold there. So that's something interesting to check out. So and sometimes like Etsy as well is actually really good for for lots of like bondage kit and like dildos and toys and stuff.
I have no idea
that people are making. It's like silicone dildos, and sometimes.
Oh yeah, because people are selling their own stuff. Yeah, that makes sense actually.
So it's actually a good shout if you're looking for like things that you can't get, like Love Honey or something.
Okay.
So yeah.
Fair enough. Talon, do you have more questions?
Yeah, sure. I mean, on the topic of toys, what would you say is your favorite toy to use?
What category?
To spank. Like essentially spanking as well.
Yeah, because I mean, seeing the wooden paddle, like I think it's called a paddle.
I do. Actually, I have two. So the paddle strap by Fleet Ilya is my all-time favorite toy because I don't have it. It's in the other room actually. It is this like beautiful leather paddle that's quite dramatic because when you hit, it impacts on somebody's bum. The leather hits itself, so it's quite loud. But it's quite nice because you can, use it to be quite soft, but also it can be quite intense as well. And you can pull it apart, and it's a strap, so you can use it to like pull. Like it has other things, but it's kind of like it's always handy, and it always is really nice in whatever scene I could need it for. So yeah. And then this one, because it's like the paddle that I learned on, and it has like a wide surface space and it doesn't bend, so it's easy to control. Even the wood is a bit stingy, but because you can control like how hard and soft you hit, and it has a wide space, you can press down with it a lot more. So it's quite a nice one and very versatile.
It's beautiful. To say it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, they're very nice.
It's lovely color and
yeah.
Well, I was also thinking about the one you described. With the sounds, does the sound then add to the experience?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different paddles, and you want a lot of times you can have quite soft pedals, but they create a really loud sound. So it's kind of tricking you a little bit. You think it's a lot more intense than it actually is, and that's part of the fun with playing with spanking and stuff as well. It doesn't always have to be crazy impact blows that are really, really painful. It's it's your mind and your body, like a dance of the senses. And
I think that's fascinating to me. I think what I've learned a lot from this is that it's not all about just the impact of the hit, right? It's
Oh,
everything else that kind of around it as well. It's as you said, like it's the anticipation, it's the sounds, it's like, you know, and I'm assuming also that different materials would also feel different, right? I mean,
Yeah.
leathers would feel a lot different to wood.
very, very stingy. Even more so than wood. It's like a dance of the people involved.
Hmm.
Mm.
I'm gonna try and catch it online because I was doing this, but
Okay.
I'm even more intrigued. I was gonna watch it anyway, but I'm even more intrigued after the talking to you and actually understanding a bit more about it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are
Yeah.
free to leave now. People like hostage after they do like host events first. So
Cool. Thank you so much for having me.
Just quick, is it people can watch these, can't they, online? Is it queerhealth.info? Is that where they're being?
It's on the Fringe Queer Film Festival's YouTube channel.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Great.
So people can go and watch if they'd like to. That's great.
So I'm gonna come off and I'm gonna rejoin Talon and get Assad and Hafsa.
Great. No worries.
Great.
Thank you so much, Alison.
You're welcome. Lovely to meet you. Take care.
Okay, hello, I'm back. Oh, no, I'm not. Hello, everyone, I'm back. So just to let you know, in the next minute or so, we're going to have Hafsa and Assad come and talk to us about, what was it about again? Open and honest conversation about being queer and remaining religious. So if you just hold on for a few moments whilst we get everyone set up. Thank you.
But no,
Now we're unmuted.
the technical difficulties of today are much better than yesterday.
That's very, very true.
I think because we had some time to like do like a little run through, you know, and stuff. So yeah. So Assad and Hafsa are now next door. I can see them like they're trying, like they're getting the angles right. They're making sure everything is all good.
They are looking beautiful.
They are.
And stunning.
We're about to add you. Are you ready? Sweet.
Just make sure you unmute yourselves.
You have to unmute yourself.
Hi. Hi.
How are we all doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
Hot. Really
It's
hot.
really warm, so I got a tea last thing.
So we are gonna come off and let you guys have your conversation. Have fun, and we'll see you in a bit.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thank you.
see you in a bit. Bye.
Bye.
They can't see me wave. Yeah, it's great.
We could start.
I think so.
Yeah. Perfect. So welcome to our Love Hub Live,
Welcome.
where we're going to be talking everything religion and queerness and where that like intersects and where that collides and what that means to us. So I'm Assad Zafar. I work with the Love Tank CIC, a community grassroots organization. And I work in HIV prevention, mainly within MSM, focusing on BAE communities, regularly testing men for HIV, combination prevention, how you can protect yourself from other STIs, and just pumping that information out there. I'm also a gay Pakistani Muslim man. I came out a year and a half ago, and one thing for me, speaking about religion was very sticky because I didn't want to get hate or backlash. And I was like, I'm just going to keep my Muslim identity separate, my queer identity separate. But now I've really realized that I can infuse it to and just be myself. I don't need to do up Hannah Montana. I don't need to live up a double life. Just take the wig off and just be me. And we also have Hafsa with us today.
Hello, I'm Hafsa Qureshi. Any pronouns are fine. So I'm openly bi, just came out as genderqueer, so that's the whole thing. And I currently work at Stonewall, so very LGBTQ focused stuff. I've been out for a while, so it's kind of like a different conversation for me when it comes to faith and sexuality. So I hope we kind of get into what our different perspectives are. And Asad's nails are amazing, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
They look great.
It's giving catch up. Thank you.
They look great.
So what does being a queer person of faith mean to you?
Being a queer person of faith to me means power, because people keep telling us that we can't do any of those things. Like being a Muslim in England or in the UK feels pretty horrible a lot of the time, to be honest, where people don't want us around, or, you know, I wear a hijab, I'm visibly Muslim, whatever that means. And, you know, people will kind of smirk or kind of make a face and just kind of wonder why I'm there. And when I'm in queer spaces, it's the exact same thing. We're just sitting in a queer cafe and I can see people walking past looking very confused.
Yeah.
And I love messing with people like that. Like it's just really fun.
You're chaotic. It's so chaotic. I'm screaming.
Yeah, so it's power to me, just the power to mess with people, and also power to our own community to say, like, you can do this too. Like, I'm nothing special. There's so many of us.
Exactly.
You know?
To me, literally, to me, being a queer person of faith, belonging to a faith, is the same as any cishet. Like, I belong to a community. I love my faith because that's something I've grown up with, or maybe something I've found myself, and something that connects to me, and something that speaks to me. So it's the same as everyone else. We want that sense of community, that sense of space where we're all together. Togetherness is a big thing. And I found that also within a queer community, but it's the same togetherness, but we relate in a different way. My religion means a lot to me. It's something I've grown up with. It's something I believe within through and through. And one thing I always say is, to me, Islam is perfect, but Muslims are not. And coming out, I've also realized it's 10 times stronger. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's difficult because I meet LGBTQ people who hate Islam and look down on me for being Muslim. And then I'm around Muslim people or people of faith who look down on me for being queer or for being gay, and I'm like, oh, where do I fit in? Like just love me. Yeah. Well, no, like, don't need you to love me. I don't need that approval and stuff like that. But just understand that we're just like you. We're just navigating two worlds. We know who we are, or we're finding ourselves. And I just don't understand people who want to make that difficult for us. If you don't get that, go do some research, go read a book. I'm saying go read a book. People are probably watching this thinking, read the Quran yourself. I have, trust me. And it's just, to me, being a queer person of faith is the same as being a straight person of faith. Faith means something to me. It gives me a sense of community. And I will never dumb down my queerness to fit in or be accepted because I'm Muslim. And then I will also never dumb down being a Muslim person of color, being Muslim, just to fit in with the gays or fit in with the queer community ever. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm always going to be a question mark to a lot of people, but regardless of whether or not you think we exist, we do. Like, whether we're in your face or not, queer Muslims exist, and we're a huge community. It's just we don't get that kind of visibility and recognition like the rest of the queer community does. And I kind of put it like this, like if you're going to Hajj, for example, there's going to be different types of people. You might be Sunni, there might be Shias there. There's always going to be people that believe things that are different to you. Yeah. And you might sit there, you might be praying next to a queer Muslim and you won't know. And are you going to turn around and hate that person because of what they have in their heart, when you're not there for that reason? You're there to love Allah, you're there to love God.
Exactly.
And like for me, like that's always going to be part of me. My queerness and my faith, they're like the color of my eyes. Like it's not something I can permanently change. It's not something that I can necessarily hide. It's just part of me. And to ask us to change that is to ask us to do something that's impossible. And, you know, sometimes people ask, well, like, you know, how does this work? I don't understand. And my question is, well, you're straight, love. How does that work?
Literally,
like, it must be so difficult.
It must be so hard for you,
right.
Literally. I love that you said it's just like the color of my eyes. I'm going to remember that because I thought that was very profound. That hit me, got me deep. So one thing I wanted to talk about was, and I think we've touched upon this a bit, is about how the world perceives us, and how do you actively challenge those views that people push onto you? like how people, even how they act, they don't even have to speak, how they look uncomfortably. Like, how would you challenge that if somebody was challenging you to an extent as well, make you feel uncomfortable?
So as a Muslim, I believe that smiling is a sunnah. So like when you smile, it makes other people smile. So if someone is hating me, I'm going to smile back, because I'm not saying everyone should do that. I'm not saying toxic positivity is the answer. It's just, for me, I love smiling at someone who's so full of hate, because it's like, you know, it must be so awful for you, like, you know, being clouded in hate. Like, you know, you go home to your boring life, and you know, it's kind of like a pity thing for me.
It is, yeah. Like, definitely for me, I've like mastered the art of not giving an F when it comes to understanding that so many individuals, and there's some people who are just ignorant, like they're not even hateful, they're just really ignorant, and they don't want to get it. But there's some people who are so hate-filled. I'm mindful, because I just remember there might be people with their own internal struggles when it comes to their sexuality, their gender, their queerness. They might even feel like they can relate, but they're trying to put that off. I'd even say to a small extent that was me a few years ago, when I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm different. I'm very different, and oh, what am I going to do? So they could put that on others, which is really awful to do. But I'm really mindful. I remember that people are going through their own stuff. They could maybe sometimes relate, and I feel like majority of the time that is what sometimes is going on.
Yeah.
But you just need to learn that these people, dogs are going to bark, do you know what I mean, until you give them a bone. So they're going to keep barking until you give them something to stop and to shut them up. They want that reaction. They want you to open your gob and have a go back at them. So I've just learned to sometimes be silent. But when it comes to severely like having a go, and there's people around as well, and you're misinforming them, and you're going to make them think, oh crap, that person who was chatting shit was actually right, then I'm sorry, I've got to educate you. I've got to like drop a few just ways to clear up the misinformation. But for me, the art of not giving an F, not rising to the occasion sometimes, and just letting that dog bark, because some people's main mission in life is to piss you off and to have a go at you, and to not understand people who may look different, may act different, may be something completely different to what they've known their whole life. And yeah, so I say that's the way I work. Like, I do challenge people's views sometimes, but I've stopped challenging, because it can be very draining, and like you need to do a lot of self-care sometimes, and it is not always your place to have to educate people. People should be going out of their own way. Like, you're not that token Muslim queer person. It's like, okay, well, I'm like this and I understand this, do you know what I mean? But that's how it is for me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think people, like, who I'm here for is my queer community. It's other queer Muslims. That's why that's why I want to do this. Like, when I'm talking to those people, whether you're in the closet or not, whether you're not sure what your identity is, those are the people I'm talking to. I'm not talking to the people who are like, sister, I want to have a talk, when really they just want to tell me that they think I'm wrong and I shouldn't exist. Yeah. I'm not here to debate my existence. I'm not here to debate my place in the queer world or in the Muslim world. I just simply exist. Yeah. And I think I've had to unlearn explaining why I'm there. Like, even in spaces, I'm like, oh no, I work for here, and I'm queer. That's why I'm in this space. And like, it just took like someone pointing out to me that I do that constantly, that I don't need to explain myself. I'm just here, and it's fine if my presence makes people uncomfortable. That's on them to think about, like to unstick why that is. And just kind of like with the whole dog thing, like, you know, I feel like some people are projecting their own things. Like, you know, if they want a bone, they want a bone. But like, definitely. You know, some people just aren't willing to be honest with themselves and think maybe there's more here that I don't want to explore, because it'll throw my whole life into an uproar kind of thing.
I feel like, especially with experiences I've had while coming out, experiences I'm continuing to have as well, a lot of people confuse like the parallel between religion and culture most of the time. For example, taking queerness out of it, Islam gives women a lot of rights. It gave women rights from the start. Like, even it said that Jannat, which is heaven, lies at the feet of your mother. And one thing I always see is like, oh, women belong in the kitchen. Oh, it's an oppressive culture. Women are forced to wear the hijab. Yes, sadly, like in some countries, that definitely is what happens. But for example, in countries like the UK, people are just like, oh, that young girl's wearing a hijab, she was forced, or oh, that woman's wearing a hijab, she was forced. But people find, and especially I can't talk on it as much because obviously I'm not a woman. I'm a Muslim man, but that's something they want to do for themselves, and people need to understand that. And people need to understand also, one thing that really gets to me is the hypocrisy of culture when it comes to being, especially a queer person. Oh, you can't be gay, that's haram. Oh, you can't do this, that's haram. But then I'd be seeing uncles and people committing zina, having affairs, or like sex before marriage. And I don't judge, like, I really don't judge. That's fine. You do you, perfect, like, that's fine. But then who do you think you are to judge me? Who do you think you are to open up your gob and have a go at me or tell me how I'm living my life and how that's wrong? When you're not looking at yourself, it's like pot calling the kettle black, and that happens a lot. And to me, and one thing that I remember is that's people, and that's them weaponizing culture and what others say, because there's a big thing about what will people say, what others say, and that's not coming from a religious perspective whatsoever, but people put it under that like umbrella of religion. And that, when I was coming out, is what actually made me steer away from my religion a bit until I realized, wait, Islam is perfect, but it's the Muslims that aren't. Like, I'm not perfect, and it's just these people who are going to warp my sense of religion to an extent and make me step back. And I don't want that to happen until I start doing my own research and realizing, nope, like, I'm not going to not let you have any effect. And when it comes to hypocrisy, that really, it gets my blood boiling.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm a grown woman. I pay my own bills. No one is forcing me to wear hijab. No one is forcing me to be queer. Like, I am lucky enough to be independent and choose how I want to live. And it's really confusing to people to be like, well, why do you choose to cover your hair? Why do you choose not to drink alcohol? It's like, because to me personally, like, how following my faith or, you know, different aspects is really important to me. And at the same time, I'm not going to turn around and judge someone else and be like, oh, you're not Muslim enough for me. Like, the only one, like, it's the hubris of it that gets to me. Like, sorry, I mean, if you're Muslim or if you're a religious believer or you believe in God, like, you believe that God made us in a certain way, right? Like, so who made you judge, jury, and executioner to like judge another Muslim or judge another person and be like, oh, I know for sure you're going to hell? And like, I think of like what I've learned of Islam, and when people are like, we talk about us being wahid, of being one, like as a community, as an ummah in Islam. Like, sorry, but like your community is also queer sometimes. You know, are you saying that they are not also part of your community? Are you not saying that your queer neighbor 40 doors down doesn't count as a neighbor because they're queer?
Exactly.
Like, the Quran doesn't say they don't count because they're queer. I'm just saying, like,
literally, it's just when people pull up like the story about Lut, or there's just so much that's put on us. We're like, oh, see this, see that. But I'm just like, but there's also, if you've got a mustard seed of pride in your heart, then you're not going to enter heaven. And I see people with baths full of pride, you know what I mean? Like kilos of pride, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, sweetie, like, that might not get you into heaven. But I'm not going to say that because I don't even like sense. I'm not God. Yeah. People need to remember, you're not God. You don't understand what's in my heart. Like, you could see somebody who's the most pious looking man in a thobe with a beard, but you don't know what's going on. Do you know what I mean? You don't know if they're you don't know their connection to God. But then you can see a person who's just walking down the street just every day, like a teenager or whatnot, with their headphones on, banging music, but you never know their connection with God. Like, you never know how close they are to their religion and what that means to them. And that's one thing I always say, is that you're not God. Don't even try and judge me, because my religion means a lot to me. And you might not see that, I might not talk about it as much, but you don't know what's in my heart. Like, it's true, you actually don't know what's in my heart. Yeah. And you never know what's in somebody's heart. There's also another story I remember, I think my auntie told me, where I think it was a prostitute gave milk to a cat, and that one act of kindness is what guaranteed her heaven. And like, all her sins or whatever were washed away, things like that. Little acts of kindness. Like, I'm sorry, to me, the kind of person you are is what matters to me more. Yeah. And you're gonna exile someone just because they're queer, or exile someone because they might drink alcohol, or do whatever, like, that's deemed as haram. I just don't understand it, and I will never understand it. I'll never understand people who react in that way, but you know what, that's a them problem.
Do they think it rubs off on you? Like, if your faith is so strong, do you think interacting with me, a queer Muslim, or Asad, or any of us, is going to suddenly turn you queer? I mean, if you're thinking that, maybe you need to think a little bit more. Like, maybe you're not as straight as you
I wish it weren't like that. I wish I could just have a bit of an interaction, sprinkle some gays, sprinkle some LGBTQ dust everywhere, because that world would be great, just a rainbow world, taking over the world. But that's not how it works. Yeah. That's really not how it works. That's, again, it's a you problem if that's how you feel.
Yeah. I think for me as a Muslim, it comes down to intention. And also as a queer person, like, why am I doing this? Am I on this call now because I want clout and I want people to like the video and then like love me or whatever? or am I doing it because Usad is amazing and it's great that we get to be in the same room
I know.
and it's so great. Like, you know, I've had a wonderful weekend just hanging out with other queer people and seeing so many queer people of color as well. And like, I think just thinking about who you are and why you're doing it, whether you're of faith or not, like if you're a Muslim saying to another Muslim, you're not Muslim enough, why are you doing that? What's your intention? Does it make you feel better?
Yeah.
What does that say about you and your deen, your
Oh,
kind of
God.
intention towards your own religion?
Exactly.
I mean, even if you disagree with how someone lives, is pointing that out going to change anything? Are you
No.
going to suddenly unqueer us?
No.
If you really want to help us, why don't you listen to what we're saying and say, actually, we do want to come closer to the faith. So why don't you meet us halfway? I'm not saying turn queer.
Yeah.
I'm saying treat us as people. You know, if you're really trying to save us, which I get a lot,
Yeah.
then why don't you listen to us instead of saying you're going to hell? Like, you know, you've suddenly been given that power to decide.
I feel like it's a generational thing as well. Like your grandparents, your parents, your uncles, your aunties always said, "Oh, you do this better, you go to hell. You do that, you're going to hell. Hellfire already to you." Like all of that. So obviously, I feel like with our generation, I've seen that a lot. Like, oh, yeah, now he's going hell. Or, oh no, you're going hell for doing that. I feel like that's where it stems from. That's where it comes from, and that's why I'm happy we're having these conversations and we're changing that narrative. And even if there's one person reading this who then has a family and is just like to their children, like, "Oh no, you treat people with basic." It's just so weird that I have to say this. So you need to treat people with basic respect, respect of what they look like, what they practice, how they are, like their gender identity, etc. Just respect people. Like, I don't understand why it's that hard. It's not that hard. Just respect me, man. Like, I'm not doing anything to change your life. I'm just living my life. So why does me living my life how I want vex you so much? I don't get it.
Right.
I don't understand. Like, I really don't get it. Like, even when I walk into the mosque during Eid prayer, and this was since I've come out, and I get the weirdest looks. I'm like, so a part of me, and like you said, like I like pissing people off. A part of me is just like, you know what? Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, show my nail polish. I really piss you off. Uncle, do you want to see my ketchup nails? Do you know what I mean? And then other parts of me, keep your eyes to yourself. Like, I've come here to pray. I've come here to connect. Do you know what I mean? There's either prayer, like just lead me to it. Like, I just don't understand people. And again, it comes from our community. Being South Asian, one thing I've seen, our community, it thrives off gossip.
Yeah.
Thrives off of, oh, hey, did you see what this person's daughter was doing? Have you seen what...
haram, you know.
Gossiping is haram. Keep your tongue, don't be doing that. Exactly, remember. You're so right. This is what I mean. Hypocrisy. People don't remember. It's just, drinking haram, being gay haram, being lesbian haram. No, gossip's haram. Having pride is haram. Disrespecting your parents is haram. There's a lot that's haram. And people need to remember that, like, you can't pick and choose what you deem as like okay for yourself. And in a sense, like, that can sound sticky, because it can sound very sticky, but what you need to remember is, as long as you're living your life how you want, and as long as you're doing the right things that you deem are right, and that you're following religion perfectly to you, then there's no need for you to be telling other people that they're going to hell. There's no need for you to be just inflicting nastiness on people that you don't even know. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, why would you dedicate your life to that? Why would just go to charity? Like, I'm pretty sure Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will appreciate that a lot more than you telling some random Muslim person that they're going to hell. And I'm pretty sure that pains our God a lot more. Like, I just don't understand, and it's something I'll never understand, and it's something that needs to change. But it's about, how do we change it? How?
Honestly, like, there are some people who will always feel that way, and I'm not there for them.
Yeah.
I don't care what they have to say. Like, they're going to watch this or hear about people like us and be like, oh, that's disgusting, whatever. And they're not going to hear the message that we're trying to put across. To me, I want to reach the other queer Muslims, other queer people of faith who are like, actually, yeah, this speaks to me. I don't have to choose. Like, to me, my love of God is not incongruent with, you know, my queerness. They're just different aspects of me. And yet we're told time and time again, like, it just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit because you can't make it fit, because your mind is so narrow that it's too difficult for you. And I find that really sad for people, that they can't expand their horizons.
Pity them a bit, innit? Like, I actually really pity you. Like, it's that's what's going up there. Like, is there not much up there? Like, but what you said is so right. Like, especially with me, why I try and be so visible is because if there's that one young queer kid who knows that they're different and loves their religion, and even like sometimes religion aside, just knows that they're different or that they might not be accepted, just for them to know that they're valid, they're seen, you're not the only one. Like, for me growing up, I genuinely thought I was the only gay Pakistani guy to exist. It's actually, no, it's funny when I talk about it, because I'm like, I thought, it's just like me being the center of attention, me being like, I'm the only gay Pakistani guy to be living in London right now. That's what I thought as a child. But the only time I saw representation of a gay Muslim person of color was in EastEnders. You know, Saeed and Christian. I bang about this a lot now, but it's because it genuinely was the only time I was like on TV. I saw, wait, he's Muslim. Wait, no, but he's kissing a man. He loves a man, huh? And I was like, what? What is this? And I'll never forget my parents to change the channel and be like, and I had to pretend and be like, yeah. But in my head, I was like, oh my God, wow, that's so cool. Again, we don't have that representation. We don't have many people in the media or just out there for people to for the younger generation to look up to. Do you get what I mean? And
yeah,
I understand, like with our parents and the older generation, I personally believe a lot of these aunties and uncles be living their double life. That's up to them, but they'll be queer themselves. Do you get what I mean? They were never given that chance, maybe because it was a lot more restrictive, basically. Not only being in the UK, but also being in other countries. Like, your safety is paramount. You need to think for your safety. Like, you can't express yourself freely. That's really upsetting. But you need to remember that they also might be queer. They also have those internalized struggles, and it's just projection. So it's just remembering where something's coming from. When someone's saying something to you, which was also has helped me master the art of not giving an F, I just think, where is that coming from, sweetie? Like, is this really for me? Do you really just want to be telling me I'm going out? Or do you want to convince yourself that you're not going there with me? Do you get what I mean? I'm not going there anyway, but like, do you get what I mean?
Yeah, like at the end of the day, if you're a religious believer or you believe in God, you might believe that there's life after death, or you might believe that you're going to have to answer for the life that you lived, right? Depending on what faith you follow. Sorry, I'm talking about more monotheistic religions here, so like just having that kind of viewpoint. To think about that, then sit with yourself and think, well, you know, if you really think this person's going to hell, think about what you've done in your life and think, well, have I been good to people? Have I been kind? What have I used my body for? What have I used my voice for? What have I used my platform for? And people ask me like, well, you know, where do you think you're going? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't think I'm that like prideful to know. But at the same time, I feel proud of the work that I've done, and being here with you, talking to you, like you should be absolutely proud of the work you're doing, like changing lives, saving lives, you know, and you know, even just getting up and just going out there and facing the world, like it's important, it's impactful. And if I can sit with myself and think I'm comfortable with the life I lived, then you know, why I question these people who attack us and think, well, why are you so pressed? Like, are you okay?
Literally, sweet, are you doing all right? Like,
yeah.
Is everything okay at home? Like, is everything okay out there? Like, this is what I mean. Again, it's just being mindful, because it's just where it's coming from, and that is what's helped me not care to an extent, and that is helping me live my best queer Muslim life. Like, yeah, it's great. I love it. I love it here. Like, before I was like, I hate it here. I was just like, no, I hate it here. But I was like, I actually love it here. Like, if I don't fit in with the gays who hate Islam, then that's their issue. As long as I found a community that love me, understand me, are here for me as much as I'm there for them as well. It's great. We should make like LGBT Muslim club or something like that. No, we should so do that. We're gonna brainstorm this after this meeting. But yeah, talking about what about some of your experiences being a queer person of faith, Hafsa? Like, is there any interaction in the past or anything, not triggering, that's ever that you could like share, or do you think that could be beneficial?
So when people pull out the story of Lut, so like for people not aware, I guess it's the story of Lot in the Bible. Or I guess if you're looking for comparisons, if you know kind of the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, kind of in that sort of field of like these people were punished because of how they lived and blah, 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 blah. And people love quoting that story to me and saying, well, that's in the Quran, so explain. And I'm just kind of like, okay, but I'm not a scholar. And, you know, you want me to sit there and explain myself out of existence to you. I can explain how I've interpreted this as a non-scholar, or I can just say, stop talking to me. Like, you know, it's like they're trying to look for a gotcha moment of like, see, I told you this wasn't allowed. And I don't know what the intent of that is. And I always query that of like, you're trying to harm me, but why? Like, do you think that catching me in that moment will suddenly make me not queer? Or do you think it's better that I pursue Islam as I am and say, well, how can I find goodness? How can I find virtue? If you really care that much, if this is part of who I am, and it very much is, and I can't change that, then how do I pursue goodness out of that? And I don't think you need to be religious or not to think that way, to think, well, this is my lot in life. Like, I'm disabled, I have different conditions, there's things I can and can't do. I'm not going to sit there and be like, okay, so I can't do these things. I'm done forever. I'm never gonna go outside. When like physically, there's still some things I can do. Emotionally, there's still some things I can do. I'm gonna look what I can do within, not the restrictions, within the body that I have, within the framework that I have. And I really wish more people considered that when they think about who they are and think, well, okay, I may not be accepted in mainstream Muslim communities. I may not be accepted in mainstream LGBT spaces, not even queer spaces, but LGBT spaces. But there are queer spaces, there are LGBTQ plus spaces. Yeah. There's queer Muslim spaces where I can feel like I'm safe to be there, where no one's going to question why I'm there if I'm lost. You know, like QTPOC spaces especially are so powerful. I love them so much. And like, if I see another hijabi, I'm like, oh my gosh, hi, another queer hijabi. Like, I think you can get into that bubble of like, I'm the only gay in the village or the only queer in the village, but there are so many of us. We just don't get that chance to connect.
Yeah, definitely.
This
is why these spaces are so important. Literally where we are right now, like it's amazing to just interact with so many queer people of color. Definitely, you're so right.
The vibes are great.
They're immaculate. I love it. One thing I also wanted to mention, which really, I don't know, like it really does push my buttons, is the representation when we do get it in mainstream media.
Yeah.
For example, with Netflix.
Don't start.
We're gonna start. Like the thing is, I've only seen snippets of like I think 2 or 3 different shows. I've not even wanted to watch the shows purely because of these snippets where the girl who's visibly Muslim, she wears a hijab for the white guy because she feels uncomfortable around him. She's like, you know what, I feel comfortable around you now. I'm gonna take my hijab off and show you everything. That's not a wide representation of us, and it's misrepresentation. I'm just like, what are you doing? I don't understand.
No white guy's worth it though. Like, sorry.
See, I like white men, and I feel very seen right now, and I hate that for me. I'm not gonna lie.
No,
but
my partner is white, but like,
white man isn't worth it.
I just mean like they kind of make it seem like, oh, I need to take off my hijab to be accepted, and it's like, you found me hot with it on, so like, you know, do I really need to? Probably not. But also like, just the whole thing of if someone does love you, surely they would love you as you are.
Exactly.
Like for me, I'm a hijabi, and if they don't respect me and that I'm a person of faith, then surely they don't really care about who I am. Because in a way, they're picking and choosing aspects of myself. Like, it's not to say I couldn't love someone that wasn't of faith, but at the same time, they have to understand that this is a core part of who I am. So yeah, that storyline, like I took off my hijab, I'm liberated. Like I feel beautiful with my hijab on.
Yeah.
I like my hair is the same as everybody else's hair. I don't see it as something sacred or special. It's just, this is how I feel comfortable. This is how I feel seen. This is how I feel most myself.
No, definitely. It's just like, oh, what does your hair look like underneath there?
Snakes.
Oh, like, come on, Medusa. Like, what is it like under there? Or
snakes.
Like, yeah, no, people need to fix up. Like, honestly, if like, it's not a bad thing asking questions, but just do a bit of research and just understand when you sound dense. Like when you just sound like a dense mofo, like what are you doing? Like there's being asking questions, but then they're just being backhanded and just sounding ignorant as fuck.
Oh my gosh! Someone asked me what religion I am, and I was like,
"Babe, I'm wearing a hijab."
Okay, I'm in Birmingham. I'm from Birmingham. Like, I know there are people who cover their hair for religious reasons, but like, if you see someone wearing a headscarf, they're probably going to be Muslim in Birmingham.
You know what I mean?
Statistically, like.
But like I said, it's just pure ignorance because I remember reading an article of a Sikh man being beaten up because people thought he was Muslim. And I'm like, firstly, it really upset me because I'm just like, people of color, people from, especially within the UK, if you're visibly Asian or South Asian, like, obviously there's that prejudice against you. But also just assuming that he was Muslim, and I'm just like, he had a turban on. Like, it's not that hard to understand. It's not that hard to differentiate, and it's just pure ignorance. And that ignorance is just perpetuated everywhere, like in workplaces. Even when it comes down to our names, like I've been called Acid, I've been called Asda. Oh my god! No, you don't understand. Asda really pees me off because
you're a Tesco's person.
You shut up. No, I love Morrison's actually. That's why. But yeah,
you get cancelled now.
Oh
no, I'm just kidding.
Stop. You reminded me of the climate change thing yesterday. Yeah, it's just, again, it's just ignorance, and it's just I don't understand people, but at the same time, I don't need to understand you. Like, I'm going to be doing me anyway. And whether you like it or not, like it or lump it, man, because we're queer, we're here, we're Muslim. We belong to like whatever faith you belong to, whatever religion you belong to, as long as you're comfortable within yourself and you're on that journey or whatever it may be, F everyone. You don't need to apologize. You don't need to explain yourself for who you are. You don't need to educate people.
Yeah.
It's not your job. Like, they need to educate themselves. They need to broaden their minds. Like, you can't literally just stretch somebody's mind. And that's one thing that I've really learned this year, is that it's not my place. Like, if you don't want to understand me, calm, that you do you then. Because I'm not pressed about how you're living your life. I'm not pressed what you're doing, where you're going, etc. like that. So I don't understand why you're so concerned with me. Because you think I'm misrepresenting something.
Why are you so obsessed with me?
Literally, why are you so obsessed with me? But yeah, when it comes to fetishization, for being a Muslim man, just fetishization as a whole, it really makes me cringe. It really makes me cringe. Like, I've had on hookup apps, obviously on Grindr, I've had like this. For me, navigating being hairy as well. I was just like, when I was younger, it was like, he's a werewolf, he's a beast. And now it's like, oh, you hairy Greek god, I just want to, all that stuff. I'm just like, okay, cool. But when it comes to my religion, and people are just like, oh yeah, I've always wanted a nice Muslim this, Muslim that. I've always wanted a Pakistani Muslim, like blah blah. And I'm just like, okay, all right, well, that's not for me. Don't refer to me that, please. Like, just be like, oh yeah, you're my type. Oh yeah, you're good looking. Oh, how are you? How's your day going? Just ask me how my day was. Right. I just want someone to ask me how I'm feeling. I'm joking. Like, on hookup, I just want to hook up. But don't be like, oh yeah, oh you sexy. Oh my god, sometimes I get you sexy PAKI. Yeah, and I'm not like, I've been using that word myself a lot. I'm not like, I'll use it. You can't use it. And if I even mention it, and you know when people laugh a bit too hard, I'm like, why are you laughing that hard? Do you want to call me a PAKI? Like, but when it comes to being fetishized, I hate it, as everyone would. Oh, well, you might get some people who kind of are into it, like even being fetishized.
I worry about those people.
I really do as well. Okay. But for me, it's just like, I'm not accepted by certain people in the LGBT community because I am Muslim, and they don't want anything to do with me because of my religion. But then I've also got people who are salivating over that, and I'm just like, mate, I'm not going to be mentioning stuff about my religion while we're doing what we're doing. Do you get what I mean? So why does that get you so much? I don't understand it, and it just really racks my brain.
People are really gross. Like, they'll show up in your DMs, like, what's under your hijab? It's, apart from snakes, like, it's it's not that interesting. And like, I get this vibe of like, people, I'm not personally asexual or aromantic, and people just kind of treat me sort of like a nun. And it is kind of weird, because at the same time, I don't want to be fetishized because it's really uncomfortable. But at the same time, sometimes I do want to be seen as someone who is a sexual person. Like, maybe not in every single space, but if I'm talking about experiences and stuff, and people are just kind of shocked that, oh, you do these things or you don't do these things, and it's just kind of odd. And then the fetishization is just like, I've been called exotic to my face. I've met people who are trying to collect people of different races or whatever.
Try different flavors.
Yeah.
The word I can't say I will chew, but don't say that to me. It's just fucked up.
It's like, at least be cute, Like, if you're gonna rock up in my DMs, be hot, and maybe, but they're never hot. Like,
it's always let me not even get descriptive, but it's always the
bits of my body. Like, I don't want to see it. Show me a face. Is your face not great? Is that why you're kind of holding it back? But yeah.
It's always the nudes,
Yeah.
Unwarranted nudes, followed by oh yeah, you could really, oh yeah, I could have a. I don't want to say it, like, oh, this Muslim man could really do this to me or do that to me, or I'd love that in my bed. And I'm just like,
I'll take you to pilgrimage.
Literally, let's go to Hajj. Let's let's just go purify our souls, because like, don't be saying that to me. It's a bit mad.
People are weird. People are so weird. Like, people ask me if I keep it on while I'm doing stuff, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? Do you think I sleep in this?
Like, if your mum wears a job, are you going to go ask your mum? Mum, do you take it off? Mum, do you keep it on? Like, you wouldn't ask your mum, so why are you going to ask a random mum?
Right.
That is disgusting.
Yeah, people are nasty.
They are, and it needs to stop, man. Like, just be normal.
Right? Like, I'm a person, same as anyone else. Some people are sexual, some people are not. Some people are romantic, some people are not.
Yeah.
Like, I just wish I had the chance to talk myself before someone projects something onto me.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely. one thing for me as well, the main thing, one of the main messages I wanted to get across as well to people watching who might not be from the same religion as us, like from Islam, they might not be Muslim, but just getting across that a lot of the times it is misrepresentation is put across due to culture. It's not a religion. Like, to me, Islam is not oppressive. I love my religion. This is why I always pump out that to me Islam is perfect. Like, religion is perfect. It's just the people who follow it isn't the followers aren't perfect sometimes. And to me, that is always translated within the you're going to hell, or you're going here, or no, you need to change this, or no, you need to change that. Like, one and another thing that's really brought me a lot closer to my religion is Muslim people who have spoken to me with that warmth, with that kindness, not with that ulterior motive of, oh, I'm going to make him straight.
I'm gonna fix you.
Yeah, I'm gonna fix you. Do you get what I mean? Like, a super glue, you're broken. And shout out to one of my friends. His name is Wasim. Amazing guy, Pakistani guy, and has brought me so much closer to my religion. Initially, his aim was actually to fix me, but a week in, I really made it apparent that he couldn't, because I just said I'm a raging gay guy. Like, I love men, and I will never stray away from that. And he was like, all right, yeah, I'll give up. But at the same time, telling me different stories, like Islamic stories about our prophets, about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it just brought me so much closer, because I didn't have that. Like, I had that growing up to an extent, but then it really shut off quick. Once I read the Quran 3 times, I was like, okay, he's done that now. He's done. He's proper Muslim. He ain't gonna stray away from any path. But then obviously I grew up. I found myself, and I was doing things that weren't conventionally acceptable, and whatnot. And this guy, he's amazing. He's just taught me so much more about my religion, things that I still didn't even know. But with that warmth, approached me with that aspect.
Hello, we're back.
Are we back?
Are we back?
We're not on mute, right?
No, we're not on mute.
Yeah, no, we're not on mute.
Oh,
Okay, well, technical difficulty. I think we broke the internet. Being,
So hopefully you can see and hear us. But yeah, excuse my tajweed, it's not great. But I think of when I think of prayer and stuff, when we wake up for Fajr, like the adhan, like the call to prayer changes. Like, there's a line that says, "As-salatu khayrun minan nawm," like prayer is better than sleep. And we're back. And I keep that in my head. I'm just like, prayer is better than sleep for me. So is all this nonsense, like all of this is better than being asleep. It's better than turning away from my religion. It's better than turning away from my community. So I just keep that in my head, as-salatu khayrun minan nawm. Like, to me, that's how I follow my religion. Like, why am I wasting my time on the dunya when like people are trash? You know what I mean? Like,
literally, and that's one thing I've learned. Like, people are trash. Like what you say won't define what I do. Like, you're not gonna change me. So just live your life. Just go walk. Like,
jog on.
Literally jog on, like it or lump it.
Yeah.
We've got somebody called Simon who's mentioned, I think as a community we can all learn from everyone. Without knowledge and understanding, there's ignorance and stigma. 100%.
Yeah.
And to me, like, outside of and this isn't even just related to being queer and being a person of color, etc. It's just like, diversify your friendship groups, diversify what you do, like, outside of like an academic field.
Maybe don't be friends with Tories though.
Oh my god, yeah, no. Don't be friends with Tories. We don't do that around here.
Never kissed a Tory.
Oh, I've kissed a Tory by accident.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, you're so right. As a community, we can all learn and grow from each other. Oh, hi, Simon. Yeah, lovely. Oh, yeah, no, I remember you now. Yeah, thank you for that. I completely agree. I completely relate and understand, and you're right. It's just, I wish a lot more people understood that, but I'm not gonna like break my back or kill myself getting people to understand that, because it's a them problem.
Yeah.
I can put people in the right direction. I can sprinkle a bit of that queer
magic,
wisdom and magic there, but it's not my responsibility the whole time. And it's knowing when's important to take that step back and realize that, let me not put too much pressure on myself, let me not keep trying to get this message across or whatnot. If someone comes to me and needs help, especially if it's a young queer person of faith who comes up to me, I'm just like, yes, no, I embrace you, come, we are here, talk to us. It's just being like that gay Muslim uncle.
Yeah, auntie, uncle, like
auntie and uncle, literally. But yeah, that's where most of my energy goes, I'm not gonna lie, when it comes to and this is like the parallel of the horny, fetishy DMs and the disgusting, ignorant DMs, and then the racist, abuseful, you go to hell DMs. In there, you find those nuggets of gold. You find those young people, like as like 15, 16-year-olds, or like even like older, even like 35-year-olds who have just been people in their mid-30s who have just been really. But obviously, due to cultural norms and stigma and safety and living with family, it can make it very difficult. Just not being themselves and see that representation. They're like, oh, I'm so happy that you're living your life. It makes me happy. It gives me that energy that one day maybe I'll be able to, etc. And those little nuggets of gold keep me going. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I was just thinking to myself, because my family say to me, why do you have to be so vocal? Why do you have to be so out there? Why do you have to talk about being Muslim and gay? Why do you have to talk about being a gay Pakistani? Why can't you just do what you do and never talk about it? Like, it's just like you're putting shame on us, blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, because I'm somewhat like, I don't want to be like all sound profound saving lives, but I'm being that person I didn't have growing up.
Yeah.
Like, again, Saeed Christian, I want to be that.
Yeah. Like, visibility matters. The amount of people I know that will reach out to me and say, like, I was going to do this not good, harmful thing until I realized that I could just be myself. And I'm like, I'm not saying like, oh, I've changed lives or whatever, but I mean, like, visibility is that important because you might show someone that being themselves is important, impactful, and valid. You know, people need to see that.
They definitely do. I think we're coming up to the end of our live stream now. And coming up next, we have Talon and Bill. I think that starts in 1 minute at 4 o'clock. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Really appreciate it. You can go on the Love Tank's Instagram, at the Love Tank CIC, and find our panel. And somehow you can also find our Instagrams through that. And if anybody's ever got any questions or if you need someone to talk to, just drop us a message, and we're always here. Take care. Bye.
We knew we were on mute this time. We're doing well today.
Yes,
we're doing well today.
I think we should always unmute, then remove the banner, but oh well.
Sorry, I don't know. There's something about being on screen. I'm like, get it off.
A massive thank you to Asad and Hafsa for their amazing discussion. I think it was really poignant, and I'm just so glad that we have them here with us.
Like, it's incredible that we actually have, like, you know, we have two like prominent queer Muslim like people talking about this stuff. Like, we rarely see those kind of conversations happen, like, ever. Like, no. I've not really seen that before.
No, never. It's beautiful.
Well, yeah, so we actually have a slot that is semi-unplanned. So we have a loose idea. We just have some time, and I would like to talk to Talon about what you like. I just want to talk about what you do, because technically you don't work for us, and, like, you know, we've kind of just got you enslaved doing things for us. So, like, I thought it'd be interesting to talk about just kind of like the work that you do. So, like, what do you do for a living?
Okay, great. Yeah. So, well, firstly, I'm absolutely delighted that the Love Hub asked me to come and do this co-hosting gig, because the work that you guys do is so valuable to the community and to the wider community, to society as a whole. So, like, of course, I was always very happy to come and help. But my stuff, I'm a PhD student at the Division of Psychiatry, where I'm studying trans and non-binary mental health, particularly looking at suicide, depression, and anxiety as a consequence of microaggressions and some other social, like, determinants, I would say, like loneliness and gender minority stress and rumination. So that's kind of what I do in a nutshell. Mm-hmm. And at the moment, I am actually recruiting for my PhD survey, which I have the link. So I'm going to just plug myself real quick. The link is here.
When did you do that?
I did.
I saw the link, but I didn't know what it was. I just assumed it was from someone else.
Yeah.
But okay,
yeah.
okay, you plugged the link. Okay.
Yeah, I did
cool.
that. I did that just before we went live. I was like, let me just quickly jump on my Twitter and get this on here.
Okay.
So this link will lead you to more information about the study. And I'm looking particularly at people who are 18 years or above, who live in the UK. Doesn't have to be a UK citizen, but as someone who's lived in UK for at least, we'd said like a year, but I'd say shorter. Just anyone who's been living in UK and has kind of experiences here. Yeah, so that's kind of what I do, and it's a cross-sectional study, so it's a really long survey, but there are opportunities to save. So if any trans people are watching or non-binary people are watching, please do get involved. The more data we have about mental health is the better outcomes we'll have for interventions and for our understanding of, kind of why the mental health disparity is so high.
Okay, and how did you get into it?
Personal experience, right? Like, I mean, I am a trans woman and I'm also a suicidal trans woman. So
I shouldn't laugh at that, but
I know.
I was not expecting that. You're catching me off guard today.
I do that all the time. I always catch people off guard with that. I'm like, I'm a suicidal trans woman.
It's on your Twitter bio.
It should be. So like, I've had experiences with mental health services and with people generally, and something that was quite poignant to me was this idea around microaggressions and whether or not they're actually micro. We talk about these kind of like macro level, like the big kind of aggressions or violences. And when I speak about microaggressions, I'm not trying to diminish their impacts, right? It's just those kind of interpersonal, like between people things that kind of make you kind of do a double guess, like a double take. Like, did they really say that, or did they mean that, or what are they trying to say? Are they misgendering me? Like, are they saying something about me? I had those a lot where like you would hear whispers and someone looking at you and you'd be like, wait a minute, like, have I been clocked? Like, what's going on? And I think that these are kind of really insidious forms of aggressions, right? When something's macro or something's so kind of blatantly in your face, you can at least say that is a them issue, they're being a dickhead.
Yeah.
And you're not internalizing it as much. You could internalize it, but it's easier to externalize what's going on. Whereas microaggressions, I feel like they kind of hit and they linger, and you're more likely to experience a lot of them throughout your lifetime and during your day and weeks, that I think that cumulatively, they have this bigger impact on how we view ourselves, how our mental health's doing. The days I experience more microaggressions are the days I tend to feel more shit about myself. So we can try and find a way of counteracting the effects of those microaggressions. That would be great. But I think it's going to be a lot more about educating the wider public about, how much weight words have or actions have between people.
Okay, and that kind of helps follow into my next question, because I'm curious about like, what would you like to see like in your field? What would you like to see happen? What changes would you like to see? That sort of thing.
More funding. Just give us money. Let us do the work. I think that sometimes I see a lot of well-meaning cis researchers try to tackle this stuff, and they always seem to fall for the same traps, especially around asking about gender identity and expression, kind of lumping questions in like, are you a man, woman, or other? And then that's it. And it's like, well, what does other mean? What is other doing? And, as we know, other is an othering word. So it makes you feel like you aren't a kind of part of this kind of world of like, gender or whatever. And I think this you could tell me, I think it kind of falls under like race and ethnicity as well.
Definitely does.
Yeah.
There was an incident, I'm not going to name and shame, but there was an organization I should know better when it came to like doing things around PrEP. There was MSM, men who have sex with men, and then there was women in other groups. And within other groups came people of color. Like they fell under that, and it was kind of, I remember just bringing it up in a meeting, like, why, what's other? Like, why, like, I don't know. And it's that whole thing about centering whiteness as like the norm and everything else being like something else. So yeah, I remember that it happens with race, definitely does.
Yeah, and I see that a lot when I'm looking at things like census data. Sometimes I'm seeing like, the kind of question on race and ethnicity, and it's very much a single tick box of like, are you like, Asian, Black Caribbean, or Black African. And sometimes I looked at that and thought about it in the sense of like how I see gender being spectrum or multiples.
Mhm.
And I was thinking, like, what about people who are, say, Black African and Black Caribbean, and they can't pick both. They have to pick one or the
I
other.
have this issue because sometimes, like, it's weird because sometimes Black African is an option and Black British is. And then sometimes you get one or the other. So it's like, because obviously, like, genetically, I mean, I was born and raised here. I'm British and Black British by birth, but I probably identify more with like my African culture. So like sometimes Black British is the only option I have. So it's just weird, but I think in general we have issues where it comes to like taking data. Like, so there's not an option for Latino people in a lot of these categories, so things like that. So that a lot of data just isn't collected on, and then that comes in terms of like health and accessing sexual health services and things like that. So it's really frustrating.
Exactly.
Well, yeah. I have another question. What does the future hold for you?
Get this PhD done. Get a PhD done, honey. PhD done. I mean, for me, I want to continue this work, this specific work. So, as I said, like, it's a cross-sectional study, but I want to be able to, in the future, make it more longitudinal, maybe do like a repeated cross-sectional study. So looking at how mental health changes over time. So another part of my PhD is this thing called ecological momentary assessment, which is essentially doing daily diaries over the space of like a short amount of time. So I'm doing mine over 3 weeks, and it'll be every day answering the same survey, which will allow us to track people's mood and feelings over time as a consequence of experiencing microaggressions. So that would be something that kind of gives us a lot more data on whether or not there's a causal relationship between microaggressions and mental health conditions or mental health disparity stuff. So, and also not just microaggressions, but what does minority stress do to mental health, or loneliness do to mental health, especially depression, as we know that loneliness is a key causal factor in the risk of depression. So that's kind of like what I see it happening. But for me, I mean, postdoc, like just working in research forever, or working in like charities or like community organization groups like the Love Hub with data that they need analyzing, or creating projects with these kind of like amazing organizations. That's what I'd hoped for.
Okay. So I'm taking your plug down.
You're going to take my plug down? Hang on. How do we do that? Banners. Okay, we've got about 5 more minutes. I would like to know about the session you did, the Root of Our Roots.
Yeah, Root of Our Roots. Yeah, it was
How
incredible.
was that?
So Dale and I, Dale was on earlier doing the QMM/BHM portion of this. I can hear him laughing. So we originally were going to do an idea on idea on how to like best take care of like dreadlocks and stuff, and then we were planning. As we got to planning, it just wasn't very fun. It was just like, wash your hair, don't put stuff in your hair, and then that was kind of it. So it was like, why don't we do like a discussion panel where we can talk about all different things. So we then opened it up. Our friend Isaac, the guy out there with the massive afro, and then someone I know, Zena, she's working towards kind of trying to get Afro hair within the Equality Act for discrimination, because it's actually not in it. And technically it's like our hair just grows like in certain styles, and it's like hairs need to be professional. So we unpacked talking about like different attitudes towards hair in terms of like coming from African or Caribbean backgrounds. Like what was interesting is Dale grew up like always having long hair, and my hair always had to be short. So just even that, it was just interesting as we were planning and talking about like professional hairstyles in the workplace, which is ridiculous. Yeah, so things like that, like not being able to have long hair, and it was just a really good experience, because I was a bit worried because it was not a great time for Black people. Like, it's Sunday morning, and like I assumed that everyone was going to be going to church or like preparing dinner for their families or whatever. So I was a bit apprehensive, but like it was really well received. We had a great turnout. Lots of people were very interactive. I was a bit stressed about the questions, but like a lot of what I planned was kind of like done
Mm.
very instantly. Like I had like 4 questions and then they were answered in like 2 minutes, and I was like,
You need to fill the time.
yeah, but we actually we overran. We overran by like a good 5 minutes, but it was just so good, and it was so nice to have like that space. In a weird way, I wasn't like anxious about it.
Mm.
I was anxious more on Friday. Maybe it's because we've been here all weekend and I'm just used to it. But like I was super anxious on Friday when I had the event and I was on the panel. But even though I was hosting this one, I had more responsibility and I had people I knew like standing next to me. These people. It was I was just chill. It was just it was kind of like intimate as well. So yeah, it was really, really good, and I'm so happy that we did it. But yeah, and I'm hoping we can do something like that next year. Like some of the events kind of chop and change. So some move around and some like we had the AS for Activism one. We did that last year and the year before. This year was just it was just incredible. I don't know what it was this year, but I think it was the range of different people on the panel. It was insane. It was so good. So I think I'm hoping that we can keep this one.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like it has a lot of that kind of community connectedness feeling. It's like, be able to share your stories with others like you, right? And not have to pander to white supremacy.
Yeah.
Let's just name it and shame it. White supremacy that kind of places that sort of professionalism burden on black hair.
It's annoying because it's like, I mean, if I was to grow an afro, it's like, well, I should cut my hair because where does that come from? And initially, when you think about it, it comes back all the way back to slavery when they bring black people to this country and then shave their heads because, especially with women, because the white women would felt uncomfortable with it, or they not uncomfortable, they felt like put down. But yes,
white women's hair is pretty shit.
I didn't say that.
You didn't.
I'm on camera. I didn't say that.
I said that.
Okay, so gosh. Okay, so coming up next, we have Mark Walton, who is I bet you didn't know this. He's the director of the Love Tank.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there's more than 2.
There's more than 2.
Yeah, there's more than 2. There's more than 3 even. But we have Mark Walton, and he has guests, and they're going to be talking about queering the environment. So we're going to pop a quick banner, get Mark on, and then get the guest on.
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you, Phil and Talon, and thanks to the Love Hub for having us here. I'm Mark Walton. As Phil said, I'm one of the directors of the Love Tank, which is the Love Hub is one of their projects, along with Prepster and a variety of other really fantastic work that the Love Tank does. I'm going to be talking about queering the environment today for this session with my guest, Ray Teitelbaum. So can we bring Ray on, please? Because we're going to do this as a conversation.
Hello.
And welcome, Ray. Hi.
Thank you so much for having me on here.
No, thank you very much for joining me. You're joining from Spain, right?
Yes, today, yeah, I'm in Spain, just from Barcelona. Yeah, I'm just
fantastic
exhibition. So I'm glad it's all kind of making sense. all of these dots are connected. Yeah.
Cool. I'm in slightly less exotic Swindon, but yeah, by the wonders of technology, we're both here at the Love Hub. And we were set a bit of a question today to discuss, which is kind of how we can build community connection and action amongst queer people around the environment and climate change, which, given the events of the last couple of weeks, and particularly the last couple of days in Glasgow, feels more urgent and important than ever. I thought we could just maybe introduce ourselves, a bit about ourselves, our identities and our work and our relationship with nature, and then we can kind of have a bit of a chat through various points around kind of what the environment means to us, what it means to queer it, the relationship between queer people and the environment, before we sort of build to that, maybe trying to answer that question by the end of our 45 minutes. So I'm I'm Mark. I am an audio introduction. I'm a cis white 52-year-old gay man. I've got glasses, a shaved head, and a mustache. I'm proudly wearing my long time no syphilis t-shirt today, another of the Love Tank's great projects. I use he him pronouns, and as well as my work with Love Tank, I'm a founder and co-director at Shared Assets, and we're a social enterprise that supports community management and ownership of land. So we really work with people that are doing great stuff like managing woodlands and food growing spaces and community gardens and parks. So anyone who's managing land for public benefit, basically. And I guess on a personal basis, nature has always been really important to me, nature connection. I was privileged to grow up in Cornwall in the UK, one of the most beautiful parts of the UK. A little biased about that, maybe. But surrounded by moorlands and coastline and the ocean. I studied ecology at university, and I've always worked, my professional work has always been at that sort of, I guess, at the intersection between people and the environment, and our relationship with the environment and with the land. And I currently live on a narrowboat. And one of the main reasons that I do that is because it gives me a daily and immediate connection with nature. I'm in the water, and I just have to step outside into a sort of ever-changing world. So it's a real kind of privilege that I experience on a daily basis. How about you, Ray?
So my name is Ray. I use they, them pronouns. I am white American from upstate New York, from Syracuse. Yeah, right now I have just kind of, well, not just, but I've begun a process of pursuing a doctorate, a PhD in visual anthropology, which is a field that I'm still grappling with for so many reasons. But I think it's this conversation also brings a lot to the table in terms of that. And my work in my PhD has to do with basically kind of doing collaborative research with queer communities that are working on developing sustainable, experimental ways of living communally in rural areas, specifically in Spain and Portugal, which is also why I'm here. So yeah, and I'm also a multidisciplinary visual artist. I usually work with installation, particularly with video and film, and also some sculpture and textiles and poetry, and also performance. So my background is also in more of this kind of mix of art and social sciences. So I did a Bachelor in Media Society and the Arts, but I think now my work is definitely more focused on ecology and environmentalism and the relationship between that and queerness. And also, I want to say that it's not just queer communities, but also specifically trans and also non-binary focused spaces as well. So yeah, this conversation surrounding nature as well, like my own particular relationship with nature. I also grew up not in the countryside, but spending summers in very remote parts of upstate New York. And I think that has really fostered this process of a constantly unfolding relationship to nature, because I feel like, especially depending on different contexts, like it just feels ever evolving. And yeah, I'm constantly discovering more ways to form part of and with nature and ecology. So yes, very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great, thank you. And maybe let's jump straight into that, because I think that kind of discussion, the fact that this discussion kind of starts with that assumption, perhaps about like a lack of relationship between broader gay and queer culture and the environment, and one that we need to develop and build. And I guess is that your experience? And if so, like why do you think that is? or is it that that's not your experience and that you want to challenge that?
No, yeah, I think that especially there's been a lot of texts that I've been engaging with lately. One of them is Queering the Countryside, and there's another one called Mother Country, but both of them kind of talk about how like countrysides and like rural areas have always had this kind of reputation of holding a lot of like racist, homophobic, transphobic kind of ideologies, or this kind of unsafe spaceness about it for like queer, trans, Black and brown people of color. So I think that it's really, really important to kind of, especially this whole idea, which is crucial to even the notion of queer ecologies, is like what people argue against queerness, right? Like it's not natural. So then you begin to think like, well, then nature is then straight, nature is binary and straight, and therefore I don't fit into it. And not only do I not fit into like nature itself, like I'm not a normal natural part of this ecology, but also these spaces that hold the most amount of nature I'm not really welcome in, and I don't, may not feel safe in. And I think that's much more dramatic for people who are visibly queer, or people of color, queer people of color and trans people of color, and all these different things that really disrupt the kind of those ideologies basically in those spaces. So I think it's really important to re-foster those connections.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, that the sense of queerness as being an urban phenomenon, and that the city is the only safe place to fully express and explore that identity. I know for me as a middle-aged white cis gay man, like gay culture was often synonymous with materialism growing up, and kind of my first kind of few years in that culture and in that identity. And so kind of all the kind of media stuff being about the pink pound and the sort of media representation being a very materialist culture. And so particularly for me, when I moved to London in my 30s, I was concerned that would be the only kind of gay life that I would find, that I would be judged on that kind of material, what material possessions I had, or the kind of place I lived in, and that sort of thing. And I think like moving on to a boat, which I did when I moved to London, although it was primarily driven by a desire to sort of live in central London and still have access to nature on a limited budget. But it was also, I think, a way that I could kind of consciously remove myself from that kind of urban gay life, and so kind of protect myself from it in a way. And I kind of think that's changed. I think that maybe my perception was always incorrect or limited. And certainly over the years, I've come to find a large number of gay and queer people who have real deep connections and with the environment and with nature, whether they're urban or rural dwelling. But
yeah, no, I definitely think that there's this feeling, like I feel it myself, like a pressure to kind of be located in an urban area just because you feel like you will for sure have access to kind of queer communities where you will feel supported, especially for people who may not be connected to their biological families. You want to make sure, okay, well, will I have a network of people to support me and in what I'm going through or in where I'm at right now. So I think, and I can definitely hear it amongst queer people, like this fear of being isolated, like wanting, really desiring to be in more like, not urban spaces, but having a fear of being isolated. So I think it is a really good question about, that's primarily the reason that I chose to research in rural areas and spaces, because I am curious about how it's happening and in what ways, and if it is sustainable, right? Because the question, I'm saying sustainable communities, but I don't even think that most of these spaces are operating on a long-term basis. And why is that as well? I I think these are important things to consider, especially right now. Like, how might this also change as we kind of step into a new time period? Yeah.
Yeah, I was also struck by your thing there about kind of belonging and the parallels also with race and racial identity in the urban and rural as well. I'm just finishing reading Corinne Fowler's Green Unpleasant Land, which is all about the kind of links between colonialism and slavery in the English countryside, and talks a lot about this. And one of the things that's really striking, I think, from that for me was, and I'm only beginning to sort of reflect on, was this sense that in our culture, which is quite urban, like the countryside is often like the other, is often like the place of threat and the place of uncertainty and the place of danger. And actually what happens if we turn that on its head, and if actually we, you know, this is the place of nature, is I am nature, this is where I should be, and the city is actually like the foreign place, the more disconnected place. But that our culture is viewed in such a singular direction, and kind of sees the countryside in that way.
Yeah, also as behind, like just not
not
up to speed with, you know, modern times or progressive thought. So yeah, I think that's also part of this queering of the environment, is like nature is way ahead of us in many ways, has a lot of knowledges sewn into it that we still need to uncover.
And so I was struck by your a quote in the introductory quote, in fact, your thesis online. Chia Hella, is that how you pronounce her name?
I think so. Chia.
Yeah. Which is, love of nature is a process of becoming aware and unlearning ideologies of racism, sexism, heterosexism, and ableism, so that we may cease to reduce our idea of nature to a dark, heterosexual, and beautiful mother. And so I'm kind of curious as to why you chose that quote. What resonated for you in that?
Yeah, I think for me, like when I first started delving into these like theoretical topics to do with ecology and overlapping with queerness, I didn't really find queer ecologies first. What I found was ecofeminism. And in ecofeminism, I think there's this dangerous line of kind of fetishizing the notion of the Mother Earth, and kind of really thinking about and I do think, like, I absolutely think that there are valuable ideas in ecofeminism, like the perils of patriarchy and the different connections. I think that notion of interconnectedness, of like, okay, patriarchy is a huge structural system that is linked to, you know, whiteness and also dominance over nature, and, you know, binarisms and all of these different things, and heterosexuality. And I think that it's a process of kind of undoing what we have learned, or unlearning these processes and these ideologies, because when we leave it as it is, if we just take for face value what we've been taught, it's really corrupt and infiltrated with these ideas that we are not really fully aware of when we're thinking about nature, you know, or when we're thinking about what is normal or natural, you know, just even in terms of beauty standards, for example, like the white Western beauty standard has, you know, circulated the globe and become a kind of you know, marking point of reference, and of, you know, looking up to. So I think it's kind of important to really think about how are we conceptualizing nature, and why, and what is it linked to, like what structures of power is it linked to, and how can we begin to kind of deconstruct, also decolonize our own understandings of nature and our relationship to it. There's a lot of questioning that needs to happen, I think, about what we think we know in terms of ourselves and society in relation to the environment.
Particularly when it comes to nature, like we think we know, right? There's a sense of like everyone knows what you mean when you're talking about the environment or you're talking about nature. Ooh, yeah, I lost you for a second. But that sense of like, actually there's a whole bunch of stuff underlying all of that, which is like what's, yeah, as you started off earlier on saying, like what's natural, and am I natural? Like am I is it unnatural for me to be a gay man? And actually, you know, that is a word that's used about queer people, is, you know, it's unnatural. And so we kind of think of nature, of the environment, maybe less often these days, but quite often as this like benign, you know, benign space and benign construction of like it's the beautiful idyll, it's like it's the lovely place, it's the place we go to relax. But actually, because of all of this sort of structure behind it, like actually it prescribed a whole bunch of things, a whole ways of behaving, a whole set of expectations about how you look and how you behave, and so actually I don't feel comfortable there, or different people may not feel comfortable there, or may not feel wanted or part of nature, and to be called unnatural immediately expels you from that. And so kind of thinking about kind of queering that, like again, just thinking about what we mean by queering something, like it's a word people bandy about, but you had a couple of nice kind of definitions or metaphors. So talking about it as an approach to approach something from different angles and embrace a full spectrum of possibilities. And I particularly liked you saying kind of like when, like talk about a spectrum, like when light is bent, when we see white light as a singular thing, but when it's bent and refracted, or look at it from a different angle, it can create a rainbow. It creates a full spectrum of color. And so how do we take that approach to like what we've just been describing, that kind of binary, slightly monolithic, very normative kind of view of nature and the environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think something I thought about while you're speaking was also about like how people really have a tendency to put their own comfortable associations onto things. So like if it feels good for them to associate nature with something that affirms who they are and their own identity and where they fit in the world and their understanding of the world, then it's, of course, it's easiest to kind of make a broad generalization about it and not have the need to look deeper into what nature could possibly entail. You know, like if it is natural, you know, for one person, if someone is heterosexual and they're like, oh well, this fits my understanding of the world, so I'm going to use this to, you know, help my argument and help not just my argument but help me move through the world in a certain way and continue to view the world in one way. I think, yeah, that's an important thing to think about. And I think the notion of the spectrum of this white light being bent and revealing this abundance of colors and abundance of possibilities is super important, especially when we're thinking about queering the environment, because nature itself, or ecology, is extremely diverse. And I think people maybe conveniently overlook the immense diversity that is in the world around us, you know, like hermaphroditic snails and so many queer animals out in the world, and flowers that change sex. And there's an abundance of examples of this. And I think maybe even within science, within the field, there's like a lack of desire to kind of explore things that might open up possibilities for reflecting something that they don't want to see, which I think, yeah, it speaks to a broader issue. But I think there's a lot of beauty in kind of uncovering this and realizing like, oh, I'm extremely very much interconnected with what's going on in the world around me. I'm very much part of this like huge and ever expanding ecology. And, you know, in fact, we're all extremely unique with our, you know, in terms of the species in this world and the ways in which we're evolving, all things, all parts of life, all organisms. So yeah, I think that's really important to me to hold on to, is this diversity of ecology. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, and I think it definitely challenges the kind of like whatever, like a white Western, white supremacist colonialist like view of nature, and of, you know, which sort of has come from this very like binary classification and splitting everything down into kind of like, is it this or that? Well, if it's in this column, then it must be a X. And that kind of the way that I learned to classify things as a kid, like with a, you know, plant classification book of, you know, has it got 2 or 3 of these things, or has it got like leaves that go this way or that way? And they're all like, they're totally binary ways of identifying and classifying everything. And so I think what you're saying about like, okay, what if we actually look at the diversity and look at the spectrum of the natural world, then that does challenge all of that. It kind of makes those putting things into this or that box like much more difficult. But it does open up the possibility that you find yourself, like that you find animals and plants and relationships that are like the ones that we experience, that are, you know, multiple and not fixed and non-binary, and that they are all around us. But yeah, it's a struggle against the sort of like standard view and the way that science has been done and the way that biology has been done to point that out. So there's pushback around it. There's a discomfort around going, well, nature's messy, actually. Nature's messy and changing all the time, and accommodates all kinds of different relationships over all kinds of different timescales for all kinds of different purposes. And that even we aren't, like, we're not a singular being. You know, we've got all of these microbes and whatever within and upon us who are filling all of these different functions. And so we're not even fully us.
Never fully autonomous, but
yeah,
I the way that's like, it really speaks to this opening of possibilities for the future as well, because the more that we're able to kind of recognize this diversity of possibilities for ways of being, and just you know, being connected with the ecologies around us and within us, I think the more that we have the possibility to imagine what is possible and in terms of the future. And yeah.
And I think you said just then something about like we're never fully autonomous, like we're never like and so there's something really important about relationship. I think in like probably in both of our work. So I know, like for me, like my work when I set up Shared Assets like 10 years ago was quite kind of technocratic. It was like I set it up because we had a coalition government, we had austerity, and the government was trying to, in 2010, was trying to sell off the forests, the public forests. And there was a big public outcry to it. So it was clear that people weren't going to allow the forests to be privatized, but the government wasn't going to manage them anymore. So like, we need some new kind of ways of doing that. And so it started with this very sort of like, okay, what are the business models and legal structures that will enable that to happen? So quite a technical question. But you know, we've been doing this 10 years, and increasingly our work has moved on to issues around kind of social justice and racial justice in relation to land, and in particular about our relationship with the land, and the land, you know, how, if we're going to change the land system, if we're going to make the land system more just and more equal and support a better world and better lives for people, then we need a new relationship with the land, and that needs to be based on kind of mutual care, recognizing that we have a responsibility, but also that the land cares for us, and that we're never separate from the landscape. either, whether that's an urban or a rural one. Like there's always this sense of like there's humans and then there's the landscape. And so we are we are in the landscape, we make the landscape makes us. And so that sense of relationship has kind of grown and grown in my work in a way that it used to be very boxed off and separate. And how does that kind of come into your work, and what do you think it enables us? How do you think it enables us to kind of change how we engage with the natural world?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested in your work with like in facilitating these kinds of opportunities to engage more deeply with land, and also your work with like food growing and all of these things. I think this is so important because when we are unable to find ways that feel good for us personally to engage and contribute, it feels very like it's easy to feel like removed and like you're not welcome either, or that you don't have a certain skill set. So I think that this like creating spaces to share knowledges, to like really listen as well. I think for me, like learning from like indigenous people about land, and also just local people who work with land, has been so necessary and important for me to just learning where I am. You know, like for me, even being outside of the place that I was born, like learning the newness of like the plant life around me, and like perhaps like what is edible, what can I use that's around me to kind of nourish me, you know, in a different kind of way, and that might feel good for me, but maybe something else feels good for someone else. So I think there's like a kind of need to, in a way, it is like very much about kind of decolonial thought, because and also like going away from binary thought, because there's a need to kind of stop thinking about the power relationship between like human and non-human, or like, you know, society or people and land, and kind of just bringing that together more and finding those interconnections. Like people, I think, are very, very unaware of the ways in which we are already deeply connected and implicated with, you know, like even in, for example, in Western medicine, so much medicine derives so much from plants. And I think there's such a lack of awareness as well of like then the medical world also doesn't recognize, you know, other types of alternative medicine. So I think there is this is an interesting point for me of tension and possibility. Yeah.
So it's making me think about like you know the whole thing about relationship. Like my identity as a gay man doesn't even exist if it doesn't have, unless it has a relationship in it, right? So whether that's sexual or non-sexual, but it like it's all about relationship and who I have relationships with and what kind of relationships I have with them. And in the same way, the kind of being human like is based on relationships with the rest of nature as well. It's like I kind of don't exist without it. And so there's something about that, like our how we use our understanding, like all of us who identify as queer in different ways, or as non-binary or as trans, have had to examine our relationship with our relationships with expectation, our relationships with each other, our relationships of ourselves, and like how we can how we can use that kind of experience to bring that into thinking about our relationships with nature and our relationships with each other.
Yeah, I was just thinking about like when I, for example, in my own personal life, like when I walk down the street with my partner who's a trans feminine person, there's like a feeling of something being so it may be perceived as not natural too, because I don't know sometimes how people see us, but like lesbians or something beyond that or whatever. But I think it's a very, very interesting thing as well, this relationship to biology as well, especially for like trans and gender non-conforming people, or people who medically transition. Like, how does our relationship to biology and the body become also something that is not static, expansive, possible to change, and something that's malleable. So I think that's been also something really important to think about with what is natural, because it's also not static, and it's also not something we're stuck with, right? But it's ecology itself, and we're part of that. It's always fluid and moving. So yeah.
It is. So yeah, how do you think we might use all of that to sort of like build these kind of ideas about community and connection, like between queer people in the environment, and to tackle the issues that we face in terms of climate change now? Like, where's the kind of roots of possibility here?
I think that there's so many points of possibility and collaboration between queer people at this time. And I think, like, from my own personal experience, like working in the realms of research, but also within and theory, but also within art, and now going into a more hands-on space, like I'm beginning my like more field work, which is really just my time to be with people and my time to contribute to communities in Spain and Portugal. And I think that there's ways to collaborate and create spaces and communities through art, through creation in terms of writing or reading groups, but also I think there's also the balance between, right, like theory and practice. So I think the practical element is essential. Like, how are we like able to come together right now to work out other ways of contributing to this ecology that is sustaining us? So I think we really have to be more proactive in thinking about, what are my skills? What am I able to learn? What am I able to do? What am I able to contribute? What is the context of the community that I'm living in and the environment that I'm in? And how can I kind of create collaborations to make this world more livable and habitable for everyone? Yeah.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think thinking about like how art practice and kind of how helping people to explore some of these questions is going to be really important in kind of building our activism and changing our understanding of our relationships with nature and with the climate. So I'm looking forward to developing some of that as well over the next few years. I think that we're due to hand back over now, so I'm gonna thank you very much for joining me this afternoon, and hand us back over to Phil and Talon.
Thanks so much.
Hello, everyone.
Sorry, it's hilarious that the chaos is never like seen. Like we just come and we're like, yeah, it's fine, but like the chaos of like just like fuck. It just always makes me laugh. Okay, so this is the very last section, and we are going to be talking to Will and Antonio. So hi, hello.
Hey, it's lovely to be back. That was an amazing session with Mark and Ray then. Really enjoyed that. If you are both still listening, thank you. That was absolutely stunning. Yeah.
So, last 10 minutes of the Love Hub. Last day of Fringe Festival, last day of Love Hub. Like, what's the vibe? Like, what's the energy? How are we feeling? How we doing? I'm going to come to Antonio first because we haven't heard from you. Antonio's been doing all of the behind the scenes for the Love Hub, and we thank you for it. It's been amazing.
Yes,
No, it's been,
Antonio.
It's been great. Yeah, it's been really, really great. It's been really interesting to listen to all the live streams. Unfortunately, that did mean that I missed some of the spanking and roping and wet play action,
So
but
did I.
it was worth it. I know. I mean, it's like it's tough when you have to, just work. But it's been really interesting listening to Hafsa and Asad talking about, being queer around and issues around faith and the environment talk with Mark and Ray has been great and we did get a little bit of a sample of spanking on you, Phil, so that was fun.
Yeah, I was hoping that I would get my bum out like live on the internet.
I think everyone was, but
but it didn't happen. So.
It's not too late though.
It's not too late, but YouTube will ban this video if you do.
And we're still live on Facebook.
There's 7 minutes.
But yeah, Will, how are you feeling about everything?
What's been amazing is that the three of you have kind of been keeping the Love Hub Live going in this space, as people have been coming in and out of the bookshop and the cafe and coming in and out for the events happening next door and downstairs. But I am really sorry for Antonio, or Toto as I like to call him, because there were the three things that he absolutely loves that he missed out on. Being tied up, being spanked, and being pissed on, and he missed all three of those workshops.
Potentially all in one go. So if
some of us have witnessed that of you, so that's probably as much as we should say, as we are live and amongst friends.
Let me get my tea.
You can say, we'll tell you later. But before we finish, and I know we're going to be wrapping up in just a couple of minutes' time, I want to thank all three of you on behalf of the Love Tank for doing this. I know you've been kind of stuck in this fishbowl for 3 hours for both of those days. It's been a great opportunity for people who aren't in London or people who can't leave their homes or don't want to leave their homes to have some level of engagement, and that's a really important thing. And I know people will continue to watch these live streams after the weekend. If you are still in London and you want to hot foot it over to the corner of Brick Lane and Bethnal Green Road, then at 7 o'clock, we have our climax event. It's called the launch of the second Tuesday monologues. I know it's not a Tuesday, I know it's a Sunday, but it's a brand new project that we're launching it tonight, and then we'll get going in the new year, which the theme is 3 or 4 people doing 10 to 12 minute monologues on a particular theme. The theme tonight is activism, and then we get on a sofa and we pull apart that theme. I can tell you that we have confirmed some of the themes for the spring. The February one will be love and lust, and the March one will be resurrection, quite appropriately for that period of time. So if you're watching right now and you think that you have a 10 to 12 minute monologue, Talon, you've just pulled a cup over your face like you're overjoyed at the thought of coming and doing a monologue on one of those things. We would love to have you. But if anyone else is watching, we would love to have you all there and join those. As I said, hot foot it down to the corner of Brick Lane and Bethnal Green Road. If you are in London and you'd like to come to it physically tonight, we will also be live streaming it as well. And the way of finding out the live stream link is to buy a ticket, or the tickets are free. Get a ticket through our link. Go to queerhealth.info and you'll see all of the links to tickets there.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, it's been an absolute joy to be in this space with everyone. And I think what you said, Will, was really poignant about, accessibility, and at least, we can offer something for people to engage with is really important. So I don't mind missing stuff if we can offer this service for people. It's been absolutely fantastic. I also want to say a quick thank you and shout out to the Common Press for letting us use this space as well, because it's actually really lovely. It's been quite nice to sit here because you get to watch out and see people just milling around, coming and going. So it feels like a very nice organic space of just queer loveliness.
Talon, you're quite right, and if you are a book lover, there's a fantastic bookshop down here, and there's t-shirts and gift cards And this is a great way to support a new growing queer community. Come down here and buy your books. Or from, there's actually now a couple of other bookshops on Bethnal Green Road. Support our independent and our queer independent booksellers rather than buying them from those multi-billionaire booksellers on names that we will not mention. And if you are thinking about an event space and stuff like that,
it's
again,
a really wonderful
brilliant,
space,
isn't it?
Yes, it's been really wonderful being here. It feels like a breath of fresh air, and yes, it's a space that not many queer people seem to know about yet, perhaps. So spread the word.
Yep. So it's 118 Bethnal Green Road. If you're looking for it, 118 Bethnal Green Road, right on the corner of Bethnal Green Road and Brick Lane. And can I add one more thing about the venue or the space we are in right now? And if you're coming to the monologues tonight, I'm kind of going to talk to this. Right on the corner was where the National Front used to gather to sell their newspapers, to try and intimidate the local Bengali and the local Jewish community in the 70s and the 80s, and actually 90s, and I'm really proud I stood right across the street where Pret is now, and jeered and tried to reclaim that space in the late 80s and early 90s, and it fills me with such fucking queer joy to know that there is now a queer space where those fascists try to congregate. Such an amazing thing that this space is now full of fags and dykes and trans people and non-binary people and asexual people. Amazing. And people of color and, Asian people and the whole works, because, we sat in the bar space on the corner last night, and oh my God, talk about reclaiming space. Just magical, magical.
That's great. That's so good.
That's amazing. Okay, on that note, this is the end. So thank you. Thank you, Will, for putting this together. Thank you, Antonio, for doing all the behind the scenes. Thank you to my co-hosts for doing this all weekend, because we can't give you any annual leave or any time, toil. So thank you. And this was like the first ever Love Hub Live. So hopefully you'll see us next year at the next Fringe.
So it's not the end. It's not the end, it's the beginning, because we are going to take this on the road as soon as we can work out a way of doing it. And I hope that, the three of you will join us on that. I know Mark is there in the chat. Mark, join us on that traveling circus that will be the Love Hub, that we want to take it all over the place and share the queer joy that we have celebrated over the last couple of days. I can't wait for tonight's finishing event. Is going to be so good, so good.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Organic latte coffee or whatever's in here. Oat milk.
Thank you, everyone.